Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is Son of the Sun in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 76. Recovery. Or Old and New Arrivals. Akatsuki Lair, undisclosed location. Rashi's still living body laid unconscious on the hard stone floor of an underground cave. 8 figures watched him, 6 of which were mere shadowy projections. The Jinchuriki key of the 4 tails has fallen to Akatsuki, Pain declared. Good job on your first successful capture. You honor me with such kind words, Pain-sama, Tonari replied, bowing a little. I already assured you that I would be an excellent asset for Akatsuki. Yes, you proved to be useful, Konan added, though her tone revealed some unpleasantness. Come on, we need to seal the beast immediately. If I may, Obito interjected. Before we begin, however, there's something you need to know. Zetsu here has finally located the hideout of the Jinchuriki key of the 8 tails. Yes. The Jinchuriki key has been moved to a place called Valley of Clouds and Lightning, the white half of Zetsu stated. It's a place deep within the land of lightning, and its multiple mountains make it hard to traverse. Of course, no natural formation is obstacle for our abilities, the black half boasted. The Jinchuriki key has minimal escort, probably in an effort not to draw unwanted attention, so snatching him shouldn't be that hard, the white half helpfully added. Very well then. In that case, he needs to be captured immediately, Pain said with a nod. Deidara, I believe that due your flight capabilities, you're the best suited to traverse such strenuous terrain. Take Kisame with you. Understood, sir. That man won't stand a chance against my art, HN. Deidara shouted. While I'm not one who turns down a chance for some action, shouldn't we help you to seal this one first? Kisame questioned. With just 6 doing the sealing it will take quite some time. Pain shook his head. Capturing the Jinchuriki key is the hardest part of our mission, that's why we need to collect them as soon as possible, Pain explained. Once they're in our grasp, the sealing won't be a problem, since no village has found out any of our hidden lairs. Besides, I'm sure we will be done with the sealing already once you two return with the 8 tails, Konan added. All right then, Kisame said with a nod, before he and Deidara's projections disappeared. Now that that's out of the way, let's begin, Pain declared. Summoning Jutsu, demonic statue of the outer path. Konoha Hospital, a few days later after Rashi's abduction. So, how is he? A male voice asked. Any progress? He's still stable, Hokage-sama, the medic nin told Jiraiya. Though even if your son is out of danger for the time being, I can't tell when is he going to wake up. Thank you, doctor, Tsunade said. I'll leave you alone, the medic nin said, leaving the unconscious white-haired kid with his family. Our poor son, Jiraiya said, as he ran a finger through Hagena's bandaged face. I swear that I will make whoever did this to you pay tenfold. Hagena's survival was a miracle. From what Tenzo could tell, the boy had been gathering as much as nature energy as he could while he ran away from Tonari using his bloodline limit, and jumped away the moment he sensed Tonari was about to fire. However, even if he was able to avoid the initial blast, he was caught by the ensuing chain of explosions. If it wasn't for all that nature energy strengthening his body, Hagena would have died then and there. Naruto managed to keep the boy alive with his rudimentary knowledge of medical ninjutsu, as well as giving him regular chakra transfusions. The only silver lining was that the Akatsuki ambush had happened in the Land of Fire, not far away from Konoha, and they were able to get back home in just a couple days. Naturally, Naruto had taken this as good as anybody would expect. Losing yet another Jinchuriki key to Akatsuki had been a huge blow to his morale, and Hagena's status didn't make it any better. During the first 2 days, all the blonde did was sit beside the kid's bed, completely silent, never answering all those who wanted to talk to him, either being his parents, Kaida, Shizune, or even Hinata. If he was deliberately ignoring them, or his depression sunk him into some sort of trance, nobody could tell. It was during the 3rd day that Naruto broke his silence. Hagen is like this because of me, Naruto whispered. Which was a big mistake, given that among those present in the room was Tsunade. She immediately turned around, and shot Naruto a stare full of anger. Oh no, you won't. Tsunade said as she stomped towards the blonde. You aren't going to take the blame for this, you hear me? Whatever happened to your brother was tragic, but it's not your fault. In fact, I'd say it was thanks to you that brother is still alive, the other person present in the room, Kaida, added. Tsunade then groaned, and pinched the bridge of her nose. Naruto, we already went through this with the Yotakata fiasco. Why do you always feel the need to think that anything that goes wrong during a mission is your fault? I'm not saying that you shouldn't feel bad for what happened, but don't think for a second that it's your fault. You weren't even the squad leader. I'm his older brother. I had to protect him, Naruto said. No, Naruto, Hagane doesn't need you to watch over him, Tsunade had stated. Young as he is, he's a Chunin, who got earned the rank when you earned yours. But dash. No buts. Tsunade interrupted him. She then grabbed him by the shoulders and pushed him towards the door. Hey, what the hell? Mom. Naruto protested as he tried to push back. You've been here for too long. Do you think Hagane will wake up faster just because you're here? Get some fresh air already. Go visit your girlfriend. Tsunade said, as she finally pushed him out of the room. And we're in a goddamned hospital, so cut down the yelling. Tsunade yelled, before slamming the door shut. Naruto sighed, lacking the energy to fight her. Not eating anything in 2 days and not barely moving from a chair won't do anything good to your body. However, another part of him told him that his mother was right. He remembered when Hinata visited Hagane, and tried to talk to him. But Naruto was so depressed, he barely registered her presence there. Reflecting on that, that wasn't something a good boyfriend should do. I better apologize to her, Naruto said, as he started walking. Maybe I should buy her some cinnamon rolls just in case. How are you feeling today? A male voice asked. Better, another male voice replied. Today I could finally eat without wanting to throw up immediately afterward. Just try to take it easy, Itake, a woman advised. That poison was a really nasty thing. You're lucky to be alive. Turns out, Hagane wasn't the only one who had to be hospitalized upon arriving to Konoha. The leader of the operation himself, Itake Uchiha, also needed urgent medical intervention. While the antidote provided by Anko had proved to work at first, the poison's symptoms started to show the day after the battle's conclusion. Apparently, the marble needle snakes had improved their poison since Anko got that antidote, which now only served to slow down the damage caused to the body. Once again, it was thanks to Naruto's knowledge on medical ninjutsu that managed to keep the Uchiha alive until an actual medic could heal him. And even if the poison was now out of his body, the effects would take some time to disappear, meaning that, for the next couple weeks at the very least, Itake would have to spend his time locked inside a hospital room. Don't worry, brother, Sasuke began. I swear that Orochimaru will pay for doing this. All of the Akatsuki will pay. It's because of them that most of our clan is dead. Sasuke-kun. Shizune softly chided. Sasuke, no, Itake said, shaking his head. While Akatsuki needs to go down, you can't let feelings of revenge to guide your actions. You almost died, Itake, Sasuke pointed out, a scowl developing on his face. Aren't you angry? No, wait, let me rephrase that. Had Akatsuki threatened to kill me, wouldn't that make you angry? Indeed it would have, Itake admitted. But I would have at least tried to keep my anger in check. Remember, Sasuke, our clan met its downfall because they act upon their feelings and cast reason aside. Tch, whatever, Sasuke scoffed, looking aside. If you're in the mood for lecturing me, your health must be getting better. I'm going to train. Sooner or later, Akatsuki will come here to get their hands on Naruto and Fu. And with that, Sasuke left. Little brother. Itake said after Sasuke had left. While not as bad as Naruto-kun, this Akatsuki debacle is taking a toll on Sasuke-kun as well, Shizune said, shaking her head. Keeping that anger of his under control is such an exhausting task. I understand you. And I deeply appreciate all what you've been doing for him, Itake reassured the medic nin. Akatsuki is like a wound that never fully healed. Worse, every time Akatsuki wins, it's like rubbing salt into the wound. And I'm afraid of what Sasuke might end up doing if he ends up losing a loved one at their hands. Suzuki-kun knows the possibility. We're ninjas, after all. Death always follows us wherever we go, Shizun said in a mildly admonishing tone. Suzuki knows that way too well. He was surrounded by death long before he even became a ninja, Itaki reminded Shizun. There was a moment of silence between the two of them. Shizun walked towards the window, and gazed at the village, or at least the past that could be seen from there. Suzuki did bring a good point, Itaka said, changing the topic. Akatsuki now has, at the very least, 6-tailed beast in their possession. Only 3 remain. One of them is hidden in the land of Lightning, while the other 2 are here. While it's not their modus operandi, Akatsuki already invaded a village before in order to capture a Jinchuriki, not to mention how many times Obito and Orochimaru had attacked Konoha. Whatever they plan to do to capture Naruto and Fu, we won't like it. After a few seconds of staring through the window, Shizun turned around. A determined look appeared on her face. Well, they'll like our welcoming party even less. The black-haired woman said. Akatsuki isn't invisible, we have defeated them in the past. They might have won the last few battles, but the war isn't over. Itaka couldn't help but chuckle at Shizun's enthusiasm. Glad to see that you're not intimidated by such prospect, the Uchiha said. Of course not. As Jiraiya-sama said, a ninja is one who endures, Shizun stated. And we Konoha ninjas have endured more than most. Whatever Akatsuki plans, we'll be ready for it, especially now that we know about all its members. If our ninjas had half the determination and resolution you have, I'm sure of it, Itaka said, smiling gently at Shizun. Shizun, take care of Suzuki, since I won't be able to do it for the time being. Shizun nodded. You don't even need to ask. Torture and Interrogation Department. Despite the failure to stop Akatsuki and the number of injured, Itaka's squad hadn't returned home empty-handed. Anko was able to subdue and capture Hebimaru, and thanks to her snake's paralytic poison, she was able to bring him to Konoha in order to be interrogated. Right now, the purplet was watching through a one-way mirror how a Yamanaka ninja scanned his mind. A broad-shouldered man wearing a dark trench coat with his face marred by 2 huge scars walked towards her. Any progress? The man asked. Anko shook her head. Very little for the time being, Ibiki, the snake mistress replied. It seems that his skull was carved with seals that act as barriers against mind scanning or mind manipulation. If we get any cooperation at all, we will have to beat it out of him. Understandable, the scarred man said. Orochimaru had no trouble leaving him behind. If he possessed information that we could use against that bastard, at the very least he would have tried to kill his underling. As much as pains me to talk positively about my former sensei, he's a very methodical man who rarely leaves loose ends, Anko hissed. Even then, Orochimaru is still a man, and every man makes mistakes, Ibiki stated. This might have been one of them. Yes, there might be the case, Anko stated. While this man doesn't appear to take Orochimaru's betrayal as such, I saw the way his twin sister reacted. Even if we can't get any useful information out of him, we might be able to use him to turn the girl against her master. That would be nice. We never had any kind of leverage against him. This might be the first truly important minion of Orochimaru we got our hands onto, Ibiki stated. Speaking of which, how are your brats? I heard they returned from the mission in a pretty bad shape. You heard right, Anko said. However, they weren't as bad as others. They didn't even need to be a whole day in the hospital before being discharged. While they got some pretty bad wounds, there was nothing that would leave any kind of permanent effect. Ibiki couldn't repress a smile. Is that relief I hear in your voice, Anko? It almost looked like you care about those brats. Anko turned at Ibiki, and frowned. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Just because I'm kind of a sadist, doesn't mean I don't care about a lot of people, you know. Kind of. Ibiki laughed. And I wasn't talking about that. Those brats used to work for Orochimaru. I thought you hated everybody related to that traitor. I thought that too, Anko admitted. But the more I got to know those kids, the more I realized they really didn't know what they were getting themselves into. Thankfully, seeing Orochimaru abandon one of his minions made them realize that joining Konoha was the smart thing to do. They were almost like. Anko left the sentence unfinished. Come on, say it, Ibiki prodded. They remind me of how I used to be, and how I used to see Orochimaru, Anko finally said. And I swore I'd never let them end the same way I did. Give yourself some credit. I think you turned out pretty well, Ibiki complimented. Though don't get yourself too attached to those brats. We don't want any softa working here. Who the hell are you calling a softa, Ibiki? An outraged Anko angrily asked, as she stomped towards the interrogation room Hebamera was in. All right, get that Yamanaka out of there. Once I'm done with that fucker, he'll beg me to kill him. Hyagaya State. After buying a bag of the best cinnamon rolls he could find in Konoha, Naruto headed towards his girlfriend's house. He was hoping that Hinata wouldn't be too mad at him, and that the sweet treats would do the trick. Then again, he never remembered Hinata being truly mad at him, ever. Even if they sometimes had arguments just like any other couple, they usually solved them in a civilized manner. Even then, bringing this won't hurt, Naruto told to himself, as he finally reached the door. There were a couple of guards guarding the entrance to the compound as usual. What wasn't usual, however, was that these men belonged to the main house, given that their exposed foreheads lacked the much-hated caged bird seal. Guess this is the result of Hinata's equality policies, Naruto thought, as he mentally shrugged. Hello there, Naruto-san, one of the Hyuga guards brightly greeted him, confusing Naruto even more. Why a main house member would be so happy if he was doing a job that used to be part of the branch house's duties. Are you here to see Hinata-sama? Yeah, Naruto replied with a nod. Do you know if she's too angry with me? Last time she talked to me, I was kind of a jerk to her. Ah, yes, we heard about that, the other guard said, albeit he didn't sound disproving. However, Hinata-sama was aware of the circumstances surrounding your mood back then, and doesn't blame you for your reaction. She decided that giving you space was the best course of action, and that you'd come back to her once the moment was right. And given that you're here now, guess that she made the right choice. Hinata-sama is in the outdoor training ground, sparring with Hanabi-sama, the first guard told Naruto. All right, thanks a lot. Naruto said. The blonde was a bit relieved to hear that. There was the chance that those guards would be playing a prank of him and Hinata was actually beyond furious, but he pushed the idea aside. Naruto has always been welcome among the Hyuga, and they treated him with nothing but politeness and respect. Oh look, Naruto-san is here. Welcome, Naruto-san. Came to see Hinata-sama? She will be happy to see you. As he walked across the compound, he was warmly greeted by more Hyugas, all of them main house, if their naked foreheads were of any indication, and all of them in an exceptionally good mood. Weird. Just what happened to make these guys so happy? Naruto inwardly wondered. And now that I think about it, I only saw main house members. What happened to the branch house? Hello, Naruto, are you here to see Hinata-sama? A familiar voice said, one that sounded far more stoic than the average Hyuga. She will be happy to see you. She has been quite worried about you these past days. Oh, hey, Niji. Naruto happily greeted Hinata's cousin. Say, can you tell me what's going on? Why is everybody so happy? In an incredibly rare display, Niji smiled at Naruto. While the smile was genuine and warm, it was also a bit mischievous. Are you saying you can't tell? The Hyuga prodigy stated, almost chuckling. Come on, look a bit closer. It didn't take too long for Naruto to notice what Niji was talking about. He realized that, unlike the other times he saw Niji, the Hyuga wasn't wearing his forehead protector, leaving his forehead bare. However, the caged bird seal was nowhere to be seen. Whoa! The seal. It's gone. Naruto shouted, pointing at Niji's forehead with a shaky finger. Indeed it is, Niji confirmed with a nod. And good riddance. This marks a new era for the Hyuga clan. Wait, all those happy Hyugas I saw on my way here, they were branch house members? Naruto asked. Niji nodded once again. Former branch house members, Niji punctualized. The clan division is no more. All of us are equals now, thanks to Hinata-sama. Hinata, did this. Naruto asked, his shock only growing. How? Why don't you ask her? Neji replied. She's sparring with her sister in the backyard training ground. And indeed, true to Neji's words, Hinata was sappering with Hanabi in the outdoor dojo, under the watch of some Hyuga and a couple of moon acolytes. Naturally, Hinata's Tensagen registered Naruto's presence the moment the blonde entered her field of vision. Naruto-kun. Hinata happily chirped, before a gentle fist to the abdomen nearly made her fall. Ouch. Hanabi-chan, what are you doing? Hey, just because your boyfriend is here doesn't mean that the spar is over, Hanabi said, showing a cheeky smile. You can't afford those kind of distractions in a real battle. Hinata merely rolled her eyes. Okay, I get it, Hanabi replied, before she turned around. Everybody, move. I bet Hinata-nichan wants some alone time with her boyfriend. A pink blush developed on Hinata's cheeks. Do you have to word it that way? You make it sound as if Naruto-kun and I are going to do it here. You aren't. Hanabi asked, feigning innocence. Kidding. We're leaving. After a couple minutes, the outdoor dojo was completely vacant save for the two members of Kurene's assault squad. They decided to sit in one of the benches surrounding the training area. I'm glad to see you, Naruto-kun, Hinata said, as she moved her face closer to Naruto's in order to kiss him, a kiss Naruto happily welcomed. And, are those cinnamon rolls I see? Heh, there's no way to keep a surprise for you with those eyes, Naruto chuckled, as he handed the bag with the baked goods to Hinata, who was practically drooling. Consider them my apology gift. Apology? Hinata asked, before shaking her head. There's nothing to apologize for, Naruto-kun. Hanabi-chan told me how the mission turned out, and your resulting mood was understandable. Though I admit, I'm glad you feel better now. It took Mom to literally kick me out of the hospital, but yeah, I'm a bit better now. It helps that Hagane is going to be okay, even if we don't know when is he going to wake up, Naruto told her. So, how about you? Are you any better? I see you're no longer using a crutch. Hinata smiled brightly. Both Haku-kun and I recovered fully shortly before your return to Konoha. The next mission, we will be there for you. That's great to hear. Let's hope Kurane-sensei gives birth soon so the whole squad can be reunited again, Naruto said, smiling back. By the way, I wanted to ask, what happened to the cursed seals of the branch house members? Neji told me you found a way to undo them. Hinata's smile grew even wider. Yes. It took some time, effort, and a lot of trial and error, but I found a way around it. Before Naruto could ask how, Hinata waved her hand, creating a single truth-seeking ball. Truth-seeking balls contain yin-yang release, which nullify ninjutsu. That got me thinking if it could nullify fuinjutsu as well. After some testing, I managed to successfully turn an explosive tag into a mere piece of paper without destroying it. Then, I made my first test on Neji Aizen, who volunteered to be the first human test, when he heard what I was trying to do. It worked perfectly, and after a few days, I managed to remove every single caged bird seal. There's nothing now that makes any Hyuga better or superior to another. The clan is finally unified. That's awesome. I knew that one day you'll change your clan for the better, Naruto replied, smiling earnestly. Hinata smiled and giggled in return, before her expression turned a little more serious. Well, I can't help but feel that all of this is possible because of the Tensagen, Hinata reflected. I mean, I was able to enforce this new policies thanks to my new power, and removed the caged bird seal with the truth-seeking balls that came with it. What if I didn't have any of those? Naruto chuckled. You know, Mom always gets mad when I bring up possible fatalist scenarios. Now I understand why, the blonde said with a chuckle. Obviously, you wouldn't have been able to do all of these. But think about this, you were given a great power, and rather than using it to your own benefit, you used it to make the lives of your clansmen better. Not to mention that you also shared part of that power with your little sister. Hinata rubbed her arm, her cheeks turned a shade of pink at the receiving praise. Well, that's what I always wanted to do. That's what I mean, Naruto replied. You should focus on how much you're helping with your power, not how you'd be able to help if you didn't have it. Hinata nodded. I guess you are right. Heh, talking with you made me understand a little how the others feel when I get all mopey, Naruto replied. Nobody said that you have no right to feel sad when bad things happen, Naruto-kun, Hinata gently reminded. But excessively pondering over potential scenarios isn't healthy either, Naruto replied. Anyway, how have you been doing since I was out? Hinata stood up, and did a little spin around her feet. As you can see, I'm completely recovered, Hinata said. And now I'm resuming my training. Hanabi and I are trying to reach the second level of the Tensagen Chakra Cloak. Naruto nodded. While he didn't see it personally, Kaida and Hanabi told the others how Tonari had gotten back from the brink with a stronger Tensagen Cloak, which not only made his jutsu more powerful, but allowed him to summon up to 4 truth-seeking balls. It was natural that Hinata and Hanabi wanted to catch up, not just for their sakes, but for everybody else's. I just remembered something, Naruto said. When Hagane apparently defeated Tonari, he had managed to somehow bypass the truth-seeking ball's ability to nullify ninjutsu with his raised Non. Yes, Hanabi told me that already, Hinata replied. Turns out the truth-seeking ball isn't all that infallible as we thought. Hagane thought that every jutsu had a weakness, and it seems that he was right, Naruto continued. And given that both you and your sister can produce truth-seeking balls, maybe we could try to figure out what he did? Since we can't ask Hagane, and I don't want a Yamanaka to scan his mind just for that. Of course, Hinata said with a nod. We can start now if you dash. Hello. A cheerful but extremely loud voice boomed from above. A white, tan, and green blur crashed into the dojo like a meteor, producing a loud thud, and leaving some cracks in the landing zone. Fu is here. Ready for your flight lessons. Oh. Hinata said, a little defeated. I forgot that I already had appointments. Hey, don't worry, we can do that any other time, Naruto said. Hey, Fu. Naruto. Good to see you back on your feet. The bubbly girl said as he rushed to the blonde and gave him a bone-crushing bear hug. Are you feeling any better? Acknowledge. The blonde croaked in pain, before Fu released his loving embrace of pain. Why yeah, I was in a kind of a funk, but I'm better now. Good to hear it. Though, I'm very sorry for what happened to your brother, Fu said, gently patting Naruto in the shoulder. But from what I heard, he's going to be okay, right? He's out of danger, yes, Naruto replied. We're hoping he can fully recover soon. Great, Fu said, before turning at Hinata. Your sister isn't coming. Oh, yes. She must not have seen you, Hinata deduced, before leaving the two Jinchuriki alone in the dojo. I'll go fetch her. While Hinata went to look for her sister, Naruto continued to engage Fu in a small talk. It's been quite some time since he and the fellow Jinchuriki spent some time together. So, are you getting used to Konoha? Naruto asked. I know it took me a while to adapt living in another village. I won't deny I do miss Taki, the tall girl said, her mouth curved into a melancholic smile. But Konoha is pretty cool. Though I'm still getting used how big Konoha is. I could fly from one end of Taki to another in less than 5 minutes, while it takes me almost 4 times as much to do the same with Konoha. Hey, we're a great village for a reason, hee, Naruto said, grinning as he placed his hands behind his head. Where are you living, by the way? Shino was kind enough to offer me stay in his clan's compound, Fu said. It's pretty big and have plenty of room to spare. His clansmen are rather quiet and stoic, but very kind people when you get to know them. You and Shino are already living together? Naruto asked. Wow, you're surely taking things fast. Fu put her hands on her hips as she narrowed her eyes at Naruto. Hey. It's not that we're sleeping together or anything. The green-haired girl protested. We simply want to enjoy an opportunity to spend quality time before I return home. Long-distance relationships are kind of hard. Not all of us are lucky enough to find love in the same village. Hey, don't worry, I was just making an observation, Naruto said, raising his hands in a defensive manner. Even if you were sleeping together, I wouldn't judge you. Though now that you mention it. I wonder if Shino will be ready to take our relationship to the next level, Fu started to wonder, as she rested her chin on her hand. We're back, Hinata announced, as she and Hanabi returned to the dojo. Come on, let's begin, Hanabi impatiently said. Sure thing, Fu said. Anyway, we'll have to catch up later, Naruto. Being a sensei keeps me quite occupied, hehe. Again, sorry that I wasn't able to spend more time with you, Naruto-kun, Hinata apologized, bowing slightly. Hey, it's okay. There will be more time to hang out, especially now that you're back in shape, Naruto reassured. The three girls took off into the sky, while Naruto left the dojo by feet. By the way, what were you and Naruto-kun talking about? Hinata asked. I feel that I interrupted something. Oh, there's nothing you should worry about, Fu replied in a nonchalant tone. Say, Hinata, did you and Naruto have sex already? Akatsuki Lair, undisclosed location, a week later. Inside yet another underground cave, the Akatsuki were gathered to seal the four tails into the demonic statue. Without Kisame and Deidara the process had took them the best part of a week, but much to the relief of the two present members and four astral projections, the sealing was reaching its end. The last few bits of tailed beast chakra left Rashi's mouth as they were absorbed into the statue. The chakra field that kept the former Jinchura key suspended in midair disappeared, and Rashi's body fell to the ground below with a thud. His long life had finally come to a tragic end. Right after that, one of the statue's closed eyes opened, while its mouth snapped shut. It is done, Pain declared. The sealing of the four tails is complete. 6 beasts out of 9. We're doing pretty good if I may give my opinion, the white half of Zetsu said, smiling happily. It may be the case, but we shouldn't let our streak of victories drop our guard, Konan said in an almost chiding tone. Konoha is growing desperate, and it shows. Rather than their usual 4-man squads, they sent a team of 10 people to stop Orochimaru and Tonari. Not to mention that among that group was Ataki Uchiha, 2 would-release users and a Tensagen wielder. Next time, they might send an even more powerful force. Your concern is understandable, Konan, but there won't be a next time, Obito interceded. Zetsu here told me that Konoha is unaware of the 8 Tails location, nor that we attacked a team to retrieve it. Once the 8 Tails is in our possession, all what's left will be the capture of the 7 and 9 Tails, both of them in Konoha. Speaking of which, Pain spoke up. Do we have any news on Kisame and Deidara's progress? I was expecting that they should be here with the 8 Tails by the time we were done sealing the 4 Tails. Apparently, there has been some logistic problems that delayed their progress, White Zetsu said. The two of them were too far apart from each other, and thus they took a few days just to gather, Black Zetsu continued. The last time we heard of them, they had successfully infiltrated the Land of Lightning. I believe they will capture the 8 Tails Jinchuriki within the next 3 days at the latest. If I may speak, Tonari interceded. It's to my knowledge that we have half the 9 Tails. Shouldn't we seal it as well? For the time being, let's not, Pain replied with a head shake. Not only is the 9 Tails an useful asset that helped us catch a Jinchuriki, but we should seal it once we have both halves under our control. Besides, the 9 Tails should be sealed last, Obito continued. It's the most powerful of the 9, and it could destabilize the other beasts within the statue without the other 8 first. I see, Tonari replied. In that case, I have nothing else to say. Very well then. We can use this time to rest and prepare for what comes next, Pain declared. He made a hand seal, and the statue slowly sank into THR ground, until it disappeared completely. Meeting dismissed. And with that, the 4 astral images of the Akatsuki not present vanished, leaving Orochimaru and Tonari alone with the other. Orochimaru cracked his neck, and stretched his limbs. If I knew it would take this long, I would have voted against sending Kisame and Deidara to catch another Jinchuriki before sealing the one we captured first, Orochimaru complained. It's a mostly unpleasant experience, yes, Tonari agreed. He then noticed Orochimaru walking towards Rashi's corpse. Wait, what are you doing? I'm taking it with me, Orochimaru said, as he sealed the body inside a storage scroll. Why? Did you want it yourself? Why would I want the corpse of an old man? Tonari asked in disgust. Why would you want the corpse of an old man? A ninja's corpse contains plenty of secrets, and this one is no exception, Orochimaru said. This old man was able to use the lava release bloodline limit. If I study his body, I might be able to replicate it in somebody else. Did anybody tell you that you're a grim, creepy man, Orochimaru? Tonari asked the Sannin. Orochimaru nonchalantly shrugged, and grinned. I've been called worse. If there's nothing left to discuss, I'll be taking my leave. See you during our next meeting, Tonari-kun. Both the Sannin and the Otsutsuki left the underground cave, going their separate ways until Pain would recall them again for new missions. It didn't take long for Naruto to return to the hospital. Unfortunately, it wasn't because his little brother had finally woke up from his coma. While stable, Hagana was still unconscious, and the medics still weren't able to tell when he would wake up. However, the reason for his visit to the hospital was one of joy. Kurane had finally given birth. She was watching her husband train his students and Sai, who tagged along more and more often, usually at Ino's request, when her water broke. It was a good thing Asuma and his team were there, since they were able to bring her to the hospital with utmost celerity, and Ino's medicnin training came in handy to help Kurane until the red-eyed woman was in the hands of better doctors. After nearly a whole day of labor, Kurane had given birth to a healthy baby girl. And after Shikamaru, Ino, and Koji had spent quite some time watching over the newest member of the Sarutobi clan, the Genjutsu mistress had requested for her students to be present as well. Prior marrying you, they're the closest thing I have to a family, the raven-haired woman had said. And now, it was the assault squad's turn to see and admire their sensei's daughter. Ah, she's really cute, Hinata cooed. She looks like Kurane-sensei. All newborns look the same to me, Haku admitted. Saiki-kun looked the same when he was born as well. What's her name? Naruto asked. Both Asuma and Kurane looked at each other and smiled, remembering how much importance Naruto had placed on a meaningful name. We decided to name her Mirai, Kurane revealed. Mirai. Naruto repeated, as if tasting the name, before grinning and giving his sensei a thumbs up. Sounds cool. I like it. Good to see that our chosen name passed your test, Naruto, Asuma admitted with a chuckle. I know it may be a bit early to ask. Haku began, sounding somewhat bashful. But you think you'll be able to return to duty soon? Yojao-san returned to active duty only a couple days after giving birth. Of course, Kurane told Haku. She could see how both Naruto and Hinata beamed as well. Trust me, apart from finally being able to hold my daughter in my arms, I also couldn't wait to give birth already so I could get back to action. I know you guys have been going through a rough time. Heh, that's putting it lightly, Naruto said, sounding a little sour. So, does that mean that you won't continue training under me then? Asuma asked. Of course not. Naruto replied. We've been doing quite a lot of breakthroughs when it comes to Winjutsu. It would be stupid to stop now. I also want to do missions with you again, sensei, Hinata told her. Without you it hasn't been the same. Well, we're going to need babysitters to take care of her when both of us are busy, so, how about a D-rank? Asuma asked. Upon seeing three foreigners headed towards his direction, he raised his arms in defense. Kidding, kidding. Nobody in their right mind would make you do a D-rank. Kurane laughed at her husband's attempt at a joke, and the rest of them spent the next hour both talking to each other and watching Little Mirai. Orochimaru's hideout, undisclosed location. A few days after he and Tonari went their separate ways, Orochimaru had finally arrived at his main hideout. He was really hoping that Kisame and Deidara would take their sweet time with the Eight Tails, since between the battle against Konoha, the sealing of the Four Tails and the subsequent trip, the Snake Sannin felt truly tired. It seems that even with all the improvements I made to this body, I'm still close to my limit, the pale man reflected. It will be something that I'll need to tackle soon. I can't afford to have a body so unreliable. Once within the safety of his lair, Orochimaru was greeted by his number one lackey, the bespectacled medicnin known as Kabuto. Welcome back, Orochimaru-sama, the silver-haired man said. I presume your mission was a success. You presume well, Kabuto, Orochimaru confirmed with a nod. How have been things here while I've been absent? I trust nothing happened. At this, the medic Nin grew a little uneasy. For the most part, yes. Though there has been a certain individual who has been a major source of troubles lately. It didn't take a genius to know who was the bespectacled man talking about. Let me guess, Hebiko. Orochimaru asked. Yes. The rather unfortunate loss of her brother has been a major source of distress to her, Kabuto began. She has tried many times to gather several of our ninjas and head to Konoha to rescue her brother. In the end, I had to lock her up in a cell. I should have foreseen this would happen, the Sannin said, shaking his head. I knew their attachment to each other would become troublesome for this very reason. I believe the wisest course of action is to talk to her, Kabuto suggested. Orochimaru nodded. Indeed. I'll visit her immediately. Hopefully my words will be able to soothe her concerns. What if you fail? Kabuto asked. If she becomes a nuisance rather than an asset, I guess we'd have no other option but to terminate her, Orochimaru replied, thought sounding a little saddened at the possibility. Even if neither she nor her brother are indispensable to me anymore, they were strong minions, and it would be a pity if I had to get rid of them. Hebiko and Hebamera helped the Snake Sannin to make plenty of breakthroughs in his investigation on the wood release and senjutsu. However, he had managed to cultivate enough of their cells as not to need them anymore. That's why he had no qualms abandoning Hebamera the moment the white-haired ninja had become a liability. Still, Hebiko could have some uses yet. It didn't take long for the Sannin to reach the cells. One of them was actively guarded by two of his balaclava-wearing Oto ninjas, Chunin, if their uniform was any indication. The fools wouldn't stand a chance against Hebiko if the girl decided to break free. Upon seeing their master, the two of them stood to attention. Open the cell, then leave, Orochimaru commanded. Yes, Orochimaru-sama. The two of them obediently chorused before carrying out their orders. Inside the cell, Hebiko was sitting on a bench, both arms and legs crossed, an expression of unamusement plastered on her face. Orochimaru had the impression she knew that he would come to talk to her. Ah, my dear, Orochimaru began, trying to sound friendly. I was told dash. You abandoned him, Hebiko spat, interrupting the Sannin. Orochimaru was taken aback. While he could sense the unbridled anger boiling beneath her, her calmness was off-putting. He was expecting her to yell, to shout, to throw a tantrum. But this, it showed how much Hebamera's loss had affected her. Yes, I did, Orochimaru admitted, his tone turning colder. Why? Was all she asked. Was the mission more important than his life? Yes, the mission was important, Orochimaru said. Hebiko was going to say something, but Orochimaru silenced her by raising his hand. But I didn't abandon your brother to die. Somehow, I find that hard to believe, Hebiko scoffed. It's true. Had it been another enemy, I would have tried to rescue Hebamaru, even if that meant putting the mission at risk, Orochimaru said in a reassuring tone. But not with Konoha, the white-haired woman concluded. With Konoha, abandoning him is something I could have afforded, Orochimaru began. Your brother will be fine. I know they're ninjas, and I know their cage. Due the fact that the genetic template I used to create you being those of his own children, Jiraiya foolishly thinks of you as his children as well. And that sentimental idiot would never try something that would end in Hebamaru permanently damaged. But if you need additional consolation, Akatsuki will attack Konoha soon in order to capture the last two Jinchuriki. We can take advantage of that and free your brother when we're at it. There was a very tense moment of silence while Hebiko absorbed Orochimaru's words and pondered on them. After what appeared to be an eternity, she gave him his answer. You promise? Hebiko asked. You know how important you two are to me. I'd never abandon you for real, Orochimaru told the young woman. Now come on. There's still much work to do. Chapter 77. The enemy from within. Or the root of the problem. Please let it be good news, Jiraiya said to no one in an almost pleading tone, as he opened the sealed envelope. Upon reading the document inside, the Sannin's face soured, crumpled the paper into a ball, and tossed it to a nearby paper can. As with the last 3 reports he got from his ninjas gathering information on the last remaining Jinchuriki, it was negative. This was an unknown that needed to be solved as soon as possible. As far as Jiraiya knew, the remaining Jinchuriki, other than Naruto and Fu, were either Han of the Steam Armor, or Killer Bee. Jiraiya was completely sure that it was the latter. Had Killer Bee been captured by the Akatsuki, Kyumo would have retaliated in some way, not just because he was their last remaining Jinchuriki, but mostly because he was the Raikage's brother, and Jiraiya knew how emotional they could be. However, he couldn't just discard the possibility of Han being the last survivor, at least not until they had the confirmation that Killer Bee was alive. While he knew it would be impossible to take Killer Bee out of the Land of Lightning, at the very least he could form an alliance with Kyumo in order to protect him and Naruto and Fu better. Sadly, he couldn't just send the Raikage a message asking if Killer Bee was still alive, and if that was the case, to reveal his current location. Because Jiraiya knew that, once Akatsuki had 7-tailed beasts in their power, they'd turn their attention towards the one village that houses the other 2. Konoha. Jiraiya was snapped from his thoughts when somebody knocked the door of his office. Yes. The Sannin asked. The door opened, and a bird-masked Umbu peered in. Hokage-sama, Danzo of the Council of Elders is here, the Umbu announced. He wants to talk with you about an important matter. Fuck, just what I needed, a meeting with Danzo, Jiraiya grumbled under his breath, as he rolled his eyes. Tell him to come in. Yes, Hokage-sama, the Umbu replied. A few seconds after the Umbu left, the door opened again, revealing the leader of Root. Danzo, Jiraiya said. What do I owe this visit? Please try to be quick. I'm a very busy man. You know exactly why I'm here, Hokage-sama, Danzo said, as he took a seat without Jiraiya telling him to do so. Our recent failures in curbing the Akatsuki threat has put us in a very delicate situation. I'm aware of that, Jiraiya dryly replied. Any other obvious things that you want to share with me? It would do you plenty of good if you cast away that facade of sarcasm and nonchalantness, and employed some sobriety just for once, Danzo chastised, almost as if Jiraiya was a kid and Jiraiya had the feeling that that was how Danzo saw him. Your method of dealing with the Akatsuki threat has resulted in failure so far. Obviously a new strategy is needed. Not a complete failure. We managed to secure the Jinchuriki of the 7 Tails, Jiraiya tried to defend. And for that, you'll have my appreciation, Danzo replied. Or you would, if I didn't know you have the foolish idea of letting her go back to Taki once this crisis is over, instead of trying to make her stay in Konoha permanently. From what I could learn, she started a romantic relationship with the heir of one of our most important clans. Even a kid with no experience in politics should know how to use that to convince her to stay. Regardless if she chooses to stay or not, it will be a better option than within Akatsuki's grasp, Jiraiya stated, bringing the topic back on course. Danzo, however, had no option but to agree with that. Even then, Akatsuki is in control of 6.5-tailed beasts, Danzo recapped. A threat of such magnitude requires a response of appropriated scale. I'm afraid to ask, what are you suggesting, Jiraiya deadpanned. Your informants revealed that the leader of the Akatsuki has strong ties to a Megakure. In fact, the whole village appears to be under Akatsuki's control, Danzo began. The answer should be obvious, we should invade a Megakure and capture the leader of the Akatsuki. With the leader in our power, not only dealing with the rest of the organization will be much easier, but we will be able to obtain all the tailed beasts they captured. Jiraiya let out a sigh, and repressed an urge to groan. Danzo, starting a war is no small business, Jiraiya said, now being the one to use a scolding tone. Much less a war with a village that's still officially allied with us, on evidence that it's shaky at best. It would make our other allies worry that we might also turn on them on a whim. Suna and Kiri also lost Jinchuriki at the hands of Akatsuki. They should join us in the invasion, Danzo countered. Plus we aren't attacking a Megakure without reason, so it wouldn't be on a whim. This is why you were always passed for the title of Hokage, Jiraiya remarked. War is your solution to everything. It will be a solution this time around. Besides, war is unavoidable at this stage, Danzo rebutted. We have 2 of the 3 remaining Jinchuriki. You know that Akatsuki will attack us sooner or later in order to claim them. The wisest course of action would be to attack them first and catch them off guard. You can hide behind Hiruzen's pacifistic nonsense all you want, it won't change reality, not the fact that I am right. There was a moment of silence as Jiraiya pondered Danzo's words. He wanted so badly to dismiss them, but he had to admit the Warhawk had a point. And given the current situation, it wouldn't be hard for him to foster fear of the Akatsuki among the population, and gain support for a war. And thus, Jiraiya did the only thing he knew he could in this situation. "Thanks for letting me know your concerns, Danzo," Jiraiya replied, now sounding more polite. "I'll meditate on them before reaching a solution." "No meditation is needed to do such a thing," Danzo said, as he stood up and walked towards the door. "But sure, take all the time you need if that's what it takes to quell your conscience." Danzo left the office, leaving Jiraiya struggling with his thoughts. Training Ground 8. Ice Release, 1000 Needles of Death. Several ice spikes formed above Hinata and Kurane, the former taking a step forward, and slipping into a fighting stance. "Okay, I can deflect them," Hinata said, as she started to move her palms forward in a pushing manner. Protection of the 8 trigrams, 64 palms. The ice spikes showered over the two women, but Hinata's defensive jutsu blocked all of them efficiently. As the ice bolts were shattered, the air started to fill with little ice crystals that sparkled with the sunlight. This gave Kurane an idea. "Hinata, prepare to attack after this," the Genjutsu mistress said as her hands flew through hand seals. Wind Release, Great Break Trough. The raven-haired woman blew a gust of wind towards her and Hinata's opponents, the male half of the assault squad. The wind also pushed the sparkling ice crystals towards the duo, momentarily blinding them. "Not bad, sensei. You aren't as rusty as you made us believe," Haku commented, as a smirk appeared on his face, as he jumped backwards and made a hand seal. "Take this then." Ice Release, multiple piercing icicle shots. This time, Haku conjured several frozen spears, which flew towards the two women making whistling sounds. "You're right, Haku, I'm not," Kurane replied, and returned the smirk as she made a hand seal. Demonic Illusion, Mirror of Heaven and Earth Change. Suddenly, the icicles turned around, flying towards Haku instead. The ice ninja tried to move, but found several roots growing around his legs, pinning him in place. Fortunately, both the roots and the icicles dissolved into nothingness before any damage could befall. "Are you okay?" Haku looked around, and saw Naruto grabbing his shoulder. "Yeah. Thanks for the save," Haku said with a nod. "I guess I underestimated Kurane-sensei. My body might be out of shape, but I had plenty of time to hone my skills in Genjutsu," Kurane said in almost chiding tone. "You still have a long way to go until you can beat me with the very art I taught you. And you've seen only a little of what I learned these past months. Let me show you something I learned then," Naruto boasted, as he made a hand seal, before clapping his hands together. Wind Release, Riding the Hurricane. A tornado started to form around Naruto. Or better said, around Naruto's legs. As the tornado started to grow in both size and intensity, the blonde's feet stopped touching the ground, as he elevated into the air. Hinata's eyes were wide open in surprise. "I finally did it. A jutsu that allows me to fly." "Well, more or less, Naruto say. You can thank your husband for this. He's so sleeping on the couch tonight," Kurane joked, letting out a chuckle. "Okay, I'll try not to rely on Genjutsu so much, this spar is to help me get back into shape after all." "Understood. I'll hold back so you'll do most of the work, sensei," Hinata offered. Kurane nodded in return. The Genjutsu mistress ran to meet Naruto mid-charge, while making several hand seals. Earth Release, Multiple Rising Pillars. Like the name of the jutsu suggested, rock pillars grew from the ground in front of Kurane, each one being a little taller than the one before. The raven-haired woman jumped from one pillar to another as if they were stepping stones, until she was at the same height as Naruto. She pulled out several shuriken from her ninja tool pouch, and tossed them at Naruto. The orange-clad Jonin, on the other hand, pulled out his wind blade, and after activating it, he used it to deflect the incoming steel stars with expert swings. He was about to dash towards Kurane, but what happened next surprised the blonde. "Huh. Naruto saw Kurenai leaping at him, holding Asuma's trench knives on each hand, glowing with a blue aura as chakra coursed through them, and delivered a double swing in opposite directions, forming an X. Naruto barely had time to parry the surprise attack, and pushed Kurenai back onto one of the stone pillars. "Since when are you able to use those knives?" Naruto asked in shock. "Genjutsu isn't the only thing I've been working on," Kurenai replied. "While I admit that I'm not as good as them as my husband, they aren't that different from normal Konao." Kurenai was mostly a long-range fighter that relied mostly on genjutsu and ninjutsu, and thus strong close combat fighters were a problem. They were able to close the gap. That's why she decided to learn to use a melee weapon as well. "Very well then, how about this?" Naruto said, as his hands quickly made more hand seals. Wind release, cyclone shockwave. The tornado supporting Naruto expanded and grew until it doubled in size. Rather than at the top, Naruto was floating in the middle. "Riding the hurricane is not just for flying, I can combine it with other wind jutsu and use it to attack," Naruto said, as he waved his hand forward. "Onwards we go." "That's an impressive jutsu indeed," Kurenai said, as she jumped off the pillar, landing on the ground. "Though it has a glaring weakness." "And that would be?" Naruto asked, almost in a taunting manner. "I'll show you now," Kurenai said, while her hands formed more hand seals. Earth release, hiding mole jutsu. Kurenai quickly dug underground, leaving a patch of removed dirt as the only evidence that she was even there. Naruto's tornado passed over it without having any effect. "Damn it!" Naruto cursed, as he dispelled the tornado, landing on the ground, as he started to frantically look around. "Where did she go? Haku, do you see her?" "No, but stay on guard. She might plan to ambush us from below, so let's focus on the ground beneath our feet," Haku told Naruto, who nodded. "Let's fight back to back." The male half of the assault squad covered their backs with each other, as they prepared for Kurenai's next move. It didn't take long until they noticed the ground vibrating beneath them. "There she comes," Naruto warned, as he prepared to attack. But rather than Kurenai, multiple wooden roots emerged from below, wrapping them sleeves around Naruto and Haku, until the two ninjas were trapped inside a tree. "What the?" Naruto asked, as he tried to futilely struggle against his bindings. "When did she put us under a genjutsu?" "You've been under one for quite some time," Kurenai said, as she appeared from behind the tree. "And to answer your question, it was just after you used that giant wind jutsu." "Then you didn't go underground?" Naruto said in realization. "No, I didn't," Kurenai said, before making a hand seal. The tree disappeared, releasing Naruto and Haku. "I made you think that so you'd focus your attention elsewhere and wouldn't think that the attack could come from somewhere else." "Misdirection," Haku said in realization. "Misdirection is a powerful tool that, if applied correctly, can allow a ninja to defeat a superior opponent," Kurenai explained. "One that genjutsu specialists just like myself work to master above everything else." "You did a splendid job, Kurenai-sensei," Hinata praised, as she walked towards the others. "Nobody would say that you've been off duty for so long." "Thank you, Hinata," Kurenai smiled at her, before she started to huff. "But truth be told, I'm almost out of breath. That little spar left me torn. Then again, my victory is also due Naruto and Haku's poor performance." "Seriously boys, how did you let me fool you like that?" "Guess I'm a bit rusty as well, since I've been recovering from an injury these past weeks," Haku said a little embarrassed, deep down knowing that there was no excuse for failing like that. He could feel Zabuza's disappointing glare weighing on his neck. "What about you, Naruto?" Kurenai asked the blonde. "I don't remember the last time since you've been this distracted." "I something on your mind, Naruto-kun?" Hinata asked her boyfriend. "You could say that," the blonde replied. "I've been thinking in Akatsuki, and all the Jinchuriki we failed to save." "Naruto-kun," Hinata said, almost in a worried tone. "It's not what you think." "I'm done playing the blame game," Naruto reassured his girlfriend. "I've been thinking in those fights, and realized of something. The Akatsuki always managed to capture the Jinchuriki just after we located them. Now that you mention it." Haku said, as he also recalled the missions involving them. You're right. Do you think that Akatsuki is following us? Hinata asked. That, or there's a spy in Konoha that feeds them information, Naruto concluded. No, that can't be right, Kurane replied, shaking her head. If there was a spy leaking intel, I'm sure Jiraiya-sama would have already rooted him or her out. Maybe, but it's the only possibility I can think of, Naruto said. Also, what about Gaara? Or Yujito? Kurane asked. Gaara and Yujito worked for their respective villages, so tracking them would be easy, Haku countered. It would be a matter to wait until they're far from the village, or trick them into leaving it. But Yotakata-san and Rashi-san were vagrants, Hinata continued, as she came to same realization as her teammates. And Akatsuki found them almost immediately after we did. I'm with Naruto-kun, this can't be a coincidence. If what you say is true, and there's an Akatsuki spy in Konoha. Kurane began, as she looked at Naruto with worried eyes. Then both you and Fu are in grave danger. Fu and I have been in danger since the moment we became Jinchuriki, Naruto replied. Realized the way he sounded, he added. Thanks for your concern, Kurane-sensei, but this is nothing new to us. Anyway, enough of this gloom talk, Hinata said, standing up. If there's an spy, we must trust Jiraiya-sama will be able to find and deal with them. All this training worked up my AP a little. Say, how about if we go to Ichiraku's, the four of us? It's been a while since we did that. Plus I think that will take your mind off of negative thoughts. Naruto smiled at her girlfriend's suggestion. I think I can agree on that. Root main hideout, somewhere under Konoha. Careful nobody could see him. Danzo was sure Jiraiya had Umbu monitoring his every move, but the old warhawk knew how to evade them. The leader of Root entered his underground base. There, his two most trusted agents and bodyguards, Yamanaka and Torin Abarame, were waiting for him. Welcome back, Danzo-sama, Torin greeted his leader. We hope your meeting with Hokage-sama went well. It went better than most other meetings, that's for sure, Danzo replied, as he started to walk, his two minions closely following from behind. He insists that this crisis can be avoided without declaring war on AIM. However, soon he'll be forced to face the facts. Time runs against him. Indeed. We need to take the war to the Akatsuki before they attack, Fu agreed. Those who take the initiative are the ones with greater chances to win a battle. Now is time to check how the progress on my other pet project is going, the leader of Root said. Please go and fetch Sai. Tell him I want to speak with him. Immediately, Danzo-sama, Torin said, as he and his partner vanished. About an hour later, Fu and Torin returned with Sai. The three of them were kneeling in front of Danzo. Here is Sai, as you commanded, Torin said. Very well, leave us alone, Danzo ordered. The two older Root agents stood up and left instantly. Some people would have called Danzo negligent for not having more people present. You never know who can be a spy among those who work for you. Of course, Danzo knew. He knew very well. And the answer to that question was none. He had made sure to break all the ninjas working for him, before rebuilding them in his image. That method guaranteed a 100% rate of loyalty towards both him and Konoha. Danzo could tell his subordinates to die for no reason, and they would do so without even asking why. How many people could boast about that? Not even a Kage could. That's why Danzo was so sure of his agents' loyalty. Naturally, Danzo wasn't foolish enough as to trust them completely. He hadn't reached such an advanced age by being a trusting person. Report, was all what Danzo said. As expected, the Hokage suspects that somebody within Konoha is leaking intelligence regarding Jinchuriki to the Akatsuki, his agent said. So far, he has been very secretive about this issue, but has been working to rout out the potential spy. Of course, Danzo nodded. Like his sensei, Jiraiya may be an idealistic fool, but one should never make the mistake of underestimating either of them. Continue, Sai. As we suspected, he did task Ino Yamanaka with this mission. So far, nobody knows about it. Not even Jiraiya-sama's wife or elder son, or Ino's sensei and teammates, the pale boy continued. Does Jiraiya suspect it was us? Danzo asked. The leader of Root did feel a bit uneasy, worried even, but years of brutal self-imposed mental conditioning didn't allow his stoic facade to falter. Fortunately not, Danzo-sama, Sai replied. He seems to be convinced that the spy is somebody under a genjutsu placed by Obito Uchiha using Shisui Uchiha's stolen eye. Even if the eye was recovered, the genjutsu will continue to work as intended. So far, Ino doesn't seem to question this line of thinking either. Those are good news indeed, Danzo said, but once again, if he was happy, he didn't look like it. What about the Yamanaka? I hope you didn't give that girl a chance to scry your mind. She did use some of her mind jutsu on me as part of our training sessions alongside her team, Sai began. Fortunately, Fusan's training prepared me to resist such jutsu, and realize when she was reading my mind. And you trust she never did? Danzo questioned. I do. After all, Fusan is a more experienced and skilled in the arts of the Yamanaka jutsu than her. If I can resist his jutsu, then so I can hers, Sai replied. Not that I ever let my guard down with her during any moment. As it should be, Danzo replied with a firm nod. You know, it was a fortunate chance that the Yamanaka heiress showed interest in you, Sai. Being close to her might provide us with more Yamanakas to our organization. So I take that you want me to continue my relationship with her? Sai asked. For the time being, yes, Danzo said. Though I hope that you aren't growing fond of her, Sai. I believe I'm not, Sai replied. Danzo's only visible eye narrowed. You believe? Ino has been trying to undo the mental training I received at Root, Sai explained. So far, I've made her believe she's making progress. However, even with my best efforts, it's logical to think that spending so much time with one person might end up influencing you to some extent. A logical assumption, yes. For regular people, not Root ninja, Danzo harshly reprimanded. Emotions are a weakness no good ninja should be prey of. It was thanks to the girl's emotions and dare I say, hormones, that we were able to place an agent following her every step without her being none the wiser. However, we can't allow your mind to be poisoned by such nonsense. If the Yamanaka heiress is giving you this much trouble, I might have to remove you from this mission. That wouldn't be advisable, Danzo-sama, Sai countered. Despite the words, Danzo didn't detect any sort of defiance in his voice, but more of a warning. And why not? Ino-san has grown accustomed to my company, and might ask why I suddenly disappeared on her without reason, Sai explained. And if we place another agent to fulfill my role, she might grow suspicious. Danzo looked at Sai, his facade of impassiveness unwavering, as he processed the pale boy's words. Root agents were trained to think logically and to use foresight, and so far, Sai was showing a marvelous display of both attributes. Danzo couldn't find any fault in his reasoning. Yes, I believe you're right. This operation is at a too far advanced stage in order to change the agent carrying your role, Danzo admitted. However, I think that supplemental training will be in order if we want to counter the influence the girl is having on you. Of course, Danzo-sama, Sai obediently agreed. You're dismissed, Danzo finally said. Without saying any more words, Sai swiftly disappeared from the chamber, as if he was never there, leaving Danzo alone with his thoughts. So far, the plan was going good. Akatsuki would soon gather the other seven-tailed beasts in one place, making their capture by Konoha all the easier. Then, it will only be a matter of fueling a sentiment of fear towards a Megakure that would result in a war. Akatsuki would be crushed, and Konoha in possession of all nine-tailed beasts, as it should have been. And then, Danzo's dream of Konoha ruling supreme over the elemental nations would finally become a reality. Yes, the long years of planning were finally bearing fruit. Soon, everything would come to an end. Valley of Clouds and Lightning, Land of Lightning. Surrounded by steep mountains lied one of the Land of Lightning's most visually impressive hallmarks. Its unforgiving terrain made an almost impossible task to build anything there, either be a military outpost or a village for civilians to live. So naturally, most people who go to the valley are mere trekkers wanting to enjoy a beautiful sight. Of course, Kyumegakure took advantage of such terrain, and decided to build a small underground shelter beneath it. Not too big, with only capacity for 10, maybe 15 people, which wouldn't make it fit as a place to go for an evacuated village. However, it was the perfect place to hide somebody. Such as the Jinchuriki of the Eight Tails. Or it would be if Akatsuki didn't had such good spies in their payroll, albeit the best one worked for free. The valley had changed a lot in the past hour or so, mostly due to the battle of titanic proportions that just took place between its sole human inhabitant and a pair of cloaked interlopers. The battle had deviated the course of a nearby river, shattered some of the nearby hills, filled the ground with craters, and oddly enough, gigantic severed tentacles were scattered around. The two interlopers, Deidara and Kisame, walked towards their downed prey. "Goddammit, the fucker took so long to go down," Deidara said, panting. "If I knew this guy was a lightning release user. This has to be the strongest Jinchuriki we ever faced," Kisame stated, who, unlike his annoyed partner, sounded rather pleased. "Too bad. Now every enemy I will fight after this one will feel unsatisfying." "I can't believe you enjoyed this," Deidara said, as he put some of his clay into one of the mouths in his hand, and started to chew. "We've been this close to die. I still don't know how that last attack brought him down. You can say that to me, fighting is an art, and the stronger the opponent, the better. I mean, 7 swords at once. These Kumo guys might have a point when they boast about being the better swordsman. Though in the end, guess that quality trumps quantity," he replied, shooting the blonde a bloodthirsty grin. He then crouched down and placed 2 fingers on Killer Bee's neck. "Good. He's still alive. I was afraid that my last attack would have ended him for good. You can't afford to hold back against an opponent of this caliber. But thankfully, Jinchuriki tend to be tougher than average." "Yeah, whatever, I want to get the hell out of this place," Deidara said, as his mouth released a small bird made of clay, that in a burst of smoke increased his size to a point where it could comfortably carry both Akatsuki and the Jinchuriki. Deidara and Kisame hopped onto the bird, who caught Killer Bee with its talons, before it flew away. And as this happened, 2 Kumo ninja stationed nearby arrived to see the result of the ensuing fight. What happened here?" the first ninja asked. "A fight? Is Killer Bee-sama okay? Hey, what's that?" the second ninja asked, pointing at the retreating flying figure. Wordlessly, the first ninja pulled a spyglass and took a look. What he saw filled him with horror. "It's the Akatsuki. And they have Killer Bee-sama." "No. The other one said. "Come on, we have to stop them." "We can't," the first one said, shaking his head in resignation. "We have no way to catch an airborne enemy. All we can do is inform Raikage-sama of this." "Raikage-sama isn't going to take kindly to these news," the second ninja fearfully said, as he loudly gulped. "Even then, I better try to follow them, so I can find any leads." "Understood. Good luck." "I'm going to report this to Raikage-sama," the first ninja said, as he and his partner took different paths. And if both Akatsuki and Kumo ninja had stayed a little longer, they would have noticed how one of the many severed tentacles scattered around the devastated battlefield started to wiggle, as if something alive tried to get out from inside it. Downtown Konoha. Walking through the moderatedly crowded streets of the village, the 4 members of the assault squad made their way to Icharaka Ramen, per Hinata's suggestion. "I tend to eat there pretty often, but man, it felt like ages since the last time I was there," Naruto said with a grin of anticipation, both hands behind his back. "Things have been pretty hectic during the past weeks," Haku pointed out, then looked at Naruto. "Especially for you. Not having you guys with me has been weird, that's for sure," Naruto admitted. "But now that the whole squad is reunited, things will get back on track in no time. Akatsuki won't lay a finger on any more Jinchuriki, and we will rescue the tailed beasts they had in their power." "You're certainly in a good mood, Naruto," Kurane observed, before smiling at the blonde. "Did my return had such an impact to you? If that's the case, I'm really flattered. Hey, the 3 of us are pretty awesome. But none of them would be where we are if it wasn't for you, sensei," Naruto earnestly said. "A ninja might have potential, but it's a good sensei's job to bring it to the surface." "I think you give me too much credit," Kurane replied, even blushing a little. She was aware all her students had surpassed her already, yet they still looked up to her and considered her an important part of the team. You downplay too much the importance of dash. Kurane stopped mid-sentence when something caught her eye. She could have sworn she saw a certain person she hasn't seen in quite some time. Kurane-sensei? Hinata asked, tilting her head. Are you alright? But the genjutsu mistress didn't reply. Upon seeing that person turning to another street, the raven-haired woman immediately rushed after her. Wait! Kurane cried as she followed this person. Kurane-sensei? Where are you going? An alarmed Naruto asked. But Kurane didn't reply. Entering the same street as the stranger, she frantically looked around, having losing her out of her sight, until she was able to see her again, about to enter to another street. Rushing along, she followed suit, entering a less crowded zone. But much to her shock and disappointment, she was nowhere to be seen. I swear it was her. Kurane mumbled to herself, before sighing in defeat. How I wish I had a Byakugan, or were a censor at the very least. Kurane-sensei! Naruto yelled, as he and his teammates ran towards their sensei. What's going on? Shaking her head, Kurane turned around, and forcing herself to smile. Don't worry. I thought it was somebody I met some time ago. But I guess that my mind was playing with me. Come on, let's go to Ichiraku already. For the time being, her students didn't pry for any more questions, but she knew that it wouldn't last. And indeed, once they were at Ichiraku's and placed their orders, Naruto's overwhelming curiosity got the best of him, and asked. Kurane-sensei, the blonde began. Who is this person you thought you saw? Everybody could see how Kurane's expression turned somber, and the blonde immediately regretted asking that question. Still, Kurane wasn't mad at him, not after that little display from before. I think I told you about how before I got to be your sensei, I was assigned as the teacher of a girl from a dying clan that was very gifted with genjutsu, Kurane began. Yes. Yakumo Kurama, right? Hinata asked. A bit surprised that Hinata remembered that, Kurane nodded. And you know what happened to her? This time, nobody said anything, but they knew that she had died in a fire alongside her parents, putting an end to her clan forever. I think I saw her among the crowd, Kurane said. And foolish me, I thought she was alive. That she somehow had survived the fire and went to live on a secret life. What a stupid thing to think. Don't say that, Kurane-sensei, Hinata told her. I sometimes mistake some of my clan members with my father. It's possible that you just saw a girl who happened to look like her. Yes, that appears to be the most logical explanation, Kurane admitted. But the thing is, this is something that never happened to me before. It's not that I haven't lost people I cared for during my life. There's a first time for everything, Naruto said, shrugging a little. Don't dwell too much on it. That moment, Ichiraku walked towards them, placing the bowls of ramen in front of the 4 jonin. All right, your orders are ready. The ramen chef said. Hope you enjoy them. Thanks, old man. Naruto cheerfully said, as he split his chopsticks and digged in as if there was no tomorrow. Well, when you think about it, people coming back from the dead isn't that impossible, Haku observed. Take a look at Kakashi-sensei's teammates, Obito and Rin. Both of them were thought to be dead, and the 2 of them turned out to be alive and well. More or less. While nothing would make me happier than to learn that my former apprentice survived, I would hate to see Yakumo turned into another Obito, Kurane replied, as she slowly ate. It's kind of a grim thought, but there are some times where death is the better alternative. Hinata sighed heavily. And here I thought that bringing you guys here would distract you from such kind of thoughts. Sorry, Hinata, Kurane said, as she tried to put on a smile. It's just that, well, seeing that stranger reminded me of Yakumo. But don't worry, from now onwards, any sort of topic that it's remotely gloomy or grim shall be banned. I can agree with that. Naruto cheerfully said. Old man, another bowl? Kurane's eyes shot open, staring at Naruto's empty clean bowl, before looking back at her barely started one. She closed her eyes, and shook her head. I definitely missed this. As they eat, their conversation started to shift to more casual and light-hearted topics, just as Hinata had hoped. While Kurenai and Haku were full after just one bowl, Naruto and Hinata ordered several, with Hinata surprisingly eating more than Naruto, who apparently took Hinata's large appetite as some sort of challenge. They had such a good time as Icharaka that nobody, not even Hinata, noticed that somebody had been watching them the whole time. It was the person that Kurenai had mistook for her deceased student. She decided to leave before they could notice her presence. Turns out, the assault squad wasn't the only team whose members were eating together after a hard training session. Coincidentally, Kurenai's husband Asuma was also eating with her students, albeit they were having lunch at Yakiniku-Q, their usual, and Koji's favorite eating spot. Today's training has been a good one, Asuma commented. You're getting visibly stronger with each day. You guys make me proud. Ah, you don't have to say that, Ino said in fake modesty. But I enjoy being praised a lot, so keep the compliments coming. Asuma laughed at the blonde's reply. Well, this compliment may make your day then. Guys, have you ever thought in applying for a promotion to either Jonin or Special Jonin? Naturally, such question drew the full attention of his three students, who looked at him with eyes wide open. Even Koji had stopped chewing on his slice of steak when he heard Asuma saying that. Do you? Koji began, before gulping the piece of meat in his mouth without even chewing it whole. Do you mean it, Asuma-sensei? Do you think we're ready? Of course I do. If it wasn't the case, I wouldn't had say it, the bearded Jonin stated. Honestly, I think that you've pretty much outgrown the rank of Chunin for some time. It's about time you guys move forward. While the perspective of a higher rank is indeed great, I can't help but notice that there's something more to this recommendation, Shikamaru interjected, narrowing his eyes at Asuma as his lips curved into a smirk. I suppose that the fact that you have a child now had nothing to do with it. And that if we had a higher rank, you would be allowed to spend less time with us and more with your family. Asuma was taken aback by Shikamaru's conclusion. No matter how much time he spent with the Nara heir, he would never stop being caught off guard by Shikamaru's keen mind. Fortunately for Asuma, he didn't have to answer as Shikamaru continued talking. Not that I blame you for thinking that, Shikamaru added. I just want to make sure we're ready for it. I'd lie if I didn't admit spending more time with Mirai was part of the reasoning, Asuma bashfully replied. Don't think I want to get rid of you, guys. You're the best students a teacher could have. We'd never think something like that, Shikamaru said. Besides, Tamari has been needling me with that topic as well. Since she became Jonin less than a year after becoming Chunin, she also wants me to get the rank as well. A lot of people of our age group are either Jonin or Special Jonin, Ino commended, as her hand rested under her chin. I mean, Kurenai and Guy's teams have no Chunin among them. Suddenly, Ino's face lit with realization. That's it. You're afraid Kurenai-sensei will make you feel inadequate and won't match her team, aren't you? Ino. Asuma groaned as she shot the blonde an annoyed stare. Kidding. Kidding. Ino laughed, holding her hands up in defense. I know you don't have such a fragile ego, Asuma-sensei. Say, what would we have to do in order to get the promotion to Jonin? Koji asked, hoping to bring the topic back on track. For starters, you'll need to improve your record a little. Jonin usually do nothing but A and S rank missions, so you'd need to do some more missions like that in order to show them that you're ready, Asuma began. You'll also need a certain degree of expertise on 2 different elemental ninjutsu. I think we should focus most of our training on that. I'm all for it, Ino replied. Hinata and Tenten are already Special Jonin, and if I let Forward Girl to get the rank before I do, then I'd dash, Ino began, before she suddenly shut up. Her mouth was agape, and her eyes shot open. It looked as if Ino had just seen a ghost. Ino? Are you okay? Shikamaru asked, while Koji waved a hand in front of her. This seemed to snap the blonde out of her stupor. Yes. Yes. I'm fine. Ino insisted, sounding oddly nervous and agitated. I remembered something. I need to help my mom with some stuff on the flower shop. Ino pulled out her coin purse and left a couple bills in the table. This should be enough for my meal. You guys can keep the change. Sorry for leaving so sudden. I will make up for this, I swear. And Ino left the restaurant as if it was on fire, leaving her 3 male teammates rather confused. Do you know what happened? Asuma asked, deeply confused. I hope it wasn't something I said. Koji just shrugged, but Shikamaru looked pensive. It was quite obvious that the blonde was hiding something from them. Ino felt really bad for leaving her teammates like that. It was painfully obvious that her excuse to leave was a very transparent lie, but she had no other options. She couldn't tell them, at least not now. Her mission was too important, and secrecy was key. She walked at a steady pace, but not quite as fast as to make her look she was in a rush. Fortunately, Yakiniku-Q wasn't that far away from her destination, the Hokage Tower. Wasting no time, she climbed the stairs until she reached the last floor, and walked towards the Hokage's secretary. Excuse me, Ino began, making herself known. My name is Ino Yamanaka. I need to see the Hokage right now. I hope he isn't busy. You're lucky, Hokage-sama doesn't have a meeting until half an hour, the secretary began, as she pressed a button in the intercom. Hokage-sama, a kunoichi of the name Ino Yamanaka wants to see you. Sure. Tell her to come in. Jiraya's voice replied. Tell the Hokage that I bring some inspiration for his new book, Ino added. The middle-aged woman raised an eyebrow, as she shot the blonde a dubious look, but decided to comply. Hokage-sama, the secretary continued. The girl says she brings something that will inspire you for your next book. There was a moment of tense silence, until Jiraya's voice could be heard again. I want you to cancel all my scheduled appointments for today. I'm going to be very busy, Jiraya's voice said. His voice had lost all its usual warmth, replaced by steel-cold determination. But Sir Dash. Do as I say. Jiraiya insisted, silencing the secretary. And tell Ino to meet me immediately. Okay, the woman looked at Ino. You heard him, girl. Better not make him wait. Ino nodded, and walked into the Hokage's office. Jiraiya was there as expected, and stood up the moment the Yamanaka heiress made her presence known. I already made all the Umbu leave, Jiraiya began. You know what to do. Ino nodded, as she and Jiraiya made a hand seal, producing a single shadow clone each. Jiraiya had made Ino to learn the shadow clone jutsu. It took some time for the blonde, but in the end she managed to expand her chakra pool enough to produce a single clone. It was necessary for their meetings. As the clones took seats at a side of the desk each, Jiraiya walked to Ino, grabbed her wrist, and made a different hand seal. The next second, they weren't inside the office anymore, but inside the stomach of a giant toad. Jiraiya remembered the first time she had brought Ino there. The poor blonde had emptied her stomach upon realizing where he took her. However, it was the only place they could talk 100% sure nobody would listen to them. So, what is it? Jiraiya asked, already dreading the answer. It is as we feared, Hokage-sama, Ino began. It is Danzo who has been leaking information to the Akatsuki. Chapter 78. The enemy without. Or. Uprooting the bad weeds. Hokage Monument, early in the morning. Boy, I wasn't expecting so many people here, Naruto said, as he looked the crowd around him. Whatever happened, it must be big for Hokage-sama to gather this many people, Haku observed. Kurene's assault squad started their morning routine as usual, with some training before seeing any mission that could suit them. After half an hour or so, an Umbu had appeared, requesting the 3 of them to meet with the Hokage at the Hokage Monument. It was an odd choice of place, given that Jiraiya often briefed every team he tasked a mission within his office. No wonder Jiraiya-sama told us to meet him here, Hinata added. His office is pretty big, but I doubt it could fit this many people. There are a lot of known faces, Naruto said, as he scanned the crowd. There's Shizune Nichin and her team, Team Bushi-Brow Sensei, Team Kakashi. Team Asuma as well, Hinata continued. But, oddly enough, Ino-san isn't with them. Maybe she's indisposed. Naruto guessed, sounding unsure. Maybe she ate a lot and now is bedridden with indigestion. That doesn't sound like Ino-san at all, Hinata replied, shaking her head, before smiling at him in a teasing way. That sound more like you, Naruto-kun. I can also see some Umbu, as well as several military police members, Kurenai said, speaking for the first time. Whatever happened, it must be big if Hokage-sama needs so many people. Do you think it has to do with the last Jinchuriki? Naruto asked, sounding rather agitated. Given our string of failures, I wouldn't put past Dad to send an army to secure him. It's a possibility, yes, Kurenai conceded, a hand resting under her chin. Though sending this many people to a single mission has a lot of drawbacks, such as dash. It seems we're about to find out, Sensei, Hinata interrupted the raven-haired woman, as she nodded towards Jiraiya, who was walking towards them. Wait, isn't that Ino walking behind him? Naruto asked, narrowing his eyes. Seems to be the case, Kurenai said, looking as puzzled as her students. Anyway, now let's be quiet. I'm sure Hokage-sama will explain what's going on. All the ninjas present there immediately stopped chattering with each other and stood to attention once the Supreme Commander of Konoha got closer to them. He scanned the crowd, and smiled while nodding, confirming that all the people and teams he had summoned were indeed there. Greeting. I know what you're thinking. Yes, this is highly unorthodox, even for my standards, the Hokage acknowledged. However, time is of essence, and I couldn't afford to debrief every team and ninja present here one by one. The reason is for why I gathered you here is because we're going to carry out an operation against an enemy of Konoha which has been hiding within the village itself. Said enemy is the Black Ops organization known as Root, headed by Danzo. I'm sure that name rings a lot of bells. Naturally, this revelation caused a lot of people to murmur among themselves worriedly, with some even asking what was going on. It was known that Jiraiya and Danzo didn't get along, but this was going too far. What did Danzo do to merit this? Anumbu asked. Rest assured that everything has an explanation, Jiraiya continued, hoping to soothe their concerns. I had the feeling that there were spies within the village that leaked our intelligence to our enemies. More specifically, regarding those related to our operations of search and rescue of Jinchuriki. Now I know that it was Danzo's group the one behind these leaks. What they expected to gain by helping our enemies, I don't know. Do you have any evidence on this? Another ninja asked. Ino then took a step forward. I've been tasking Ino Yamanaka here with a counter-espionage mission. Sadly, it took us quite some time, but we finally have the proof needed. Without being told, Ino started to speak. I've been following one of Danzo's agents, whose name is Sai. Thanks to my clan's psychic jutsu, I was able to collect information that incriminates Danzo en route. Said information has already been shown to the people in the T&I department, as well as the Council of Elders. I knew that guy was trouble the moment I laid my eyes upon him, Sasuke said within the crowd. Well, it's a relief to see that Ino wasn't being manipulated by that asshole, Sakura added, and had to raise an eyebrow when she realized of the implications. Actually, it was the other way around. Didn't know Ino had it in her. I remember telling you that you should give Ino a little more credit, Sasuke reminded his girlfriend. She's a kunoichi after all. Near them, another Uchiha was also talking to his romantic partner. Even if said Uchiha was usually really nice and friendly, today he was shaking with anticipation. Shisui never forgot the confrontation with Danzo 8 years ago. It's hard to forget when somebody gouges your eye out. And even harder if said someone gets away scot-free. If it wasn't for Danzo, Shisui thought, the Uchiha insurrection and all the pointless bloodshed it caused could have been averted. Today, you will pay for your crimes. The Uchiha was snapped out of his thoughts when a hand grabbed his. A hand he knew too well. Shisui? You okay? Shizun whispered her husband. Don't worry, I'm fine, Shisui replied, grinning at his wife. Let's say that I've been waiting this day for a long time. I can imagine, the medic nin replied. Though try not to get too carried away, okay? This is an important mission for Konoha as a whole. Don't worry, I'll behave, Shisui reassured, as his smile widened. Though Shizun could tell it wasn't entirely genuine. Jiraiya, meanwhile, continued talking. Root has several installations that they use to carry their missions. Of course, none of them is their general HQ, Jiraiya stated. Danzo believes that the location of his true HQ is unknown to us, but he forgot that I used to be the one in charge of the village's intelligence network, so finding it wasn't that hard for me. I'm sure that word of this attack will reach Danzo's ears before we can storm his base, so expect heavy resistance, as well as an escape attempt, Jiraiya said. That's why we will split into two forces, the Vanguard unit, and the Hunter unit. The Vanguard unit will be the ones to invade his base, and capture, disable or kill every member of Root you come into contact with. The Hunter unit will spread around, and will capture any Root agent trying to flee. I expect Danzo will sacrifice several of his own agents to create a path to escape. Remember, Danzo is the main objective of this mission. If we can take him down, Root will go down with him. That's all. I myself will lead the Vanguard unit in the raid. Everybody knows your roles now, let's go. Jiraiya jumped off the cliff, using the carved faces as footholds, until he reached the village, and headed towards the main Root HQ, with the ninjas of the Vanguard unit closely trailing behind him. Meanwhile, the many squads that composed the Hunter unit moved into their positions. As this happened, 3 people were observing the display. These 3 persons were Koharu Yudiden, Homura Mito Kato, and Hiruzen Sarutobi. The retired Hokage looked at the rushing ninjas with melancholic eyes. To think that it would end like this. Hiruzen began. Danzo, just what did you do? Guess it's a good thing we didn't offer the hat to Danzo when he asked for it after the Uchiha insurrection, Koharu said, shaking her head. I believe Danzo had the skills to be a competent Hokage, Homura replied, earning a glare from the other counselor. Though, his warlike tendencies made him an unsuitable candidate. Not to mention that further militarization of the village isn't what people wanted after the horrors of the Uchiha insurrection. Danzo was also too stubborn. He always believed that his ways to solve problems were the only correct ones, Koharu continued. But to leak information to the Akatsuki. Danzo and I used to be friends, Hiruzen solemnly said, before straightening himself. And I used to believe that, despite our differences, he loved this village as much as I do. But sadly, this treason cannot go unanswered. I'm sorry, old friend. I deeply lament this had to end like this. Of all the times Hiruzen was glad that he was rid of the burden of being Hokage, this moment was the one he appreciated it the most. Just like what happened to Orochimaru, he was afraid that he would let Danzo go if he confronted his old friend. Fortunately, Jiraiya didn't have any kind of emotional connection with the Warhawk, and would do what's needed to do. Shaking his head, he turned around and walked towards the village. Let's go, Hiruzen told his former teammates. There's nothing left to see here. All we can do is wait for the news of Jiraiya's victory to arrive. Root underground base, at that same moment. Just like Jiraiya had expected, Danzo got wind of the operation against Root. Its leader wasted no time, and gathered all the available agents he had in Konoha around him. Time was of essence, and there were many things to do. Though he had hoped his men and women could deliver the results he was aiming for. My ninjas, what we feared has come to happen, Danzo started. It seems that Jiraiya has evidence of our dealings with Akatsuki. Naturally, he didn't even bother to contact me and let me explain why I did this and how Konoha can benefit from it. As we speak, a battalion of ninjas loyal to him rushed to this very base, ready to either kill or capture every single one of us. As expected, none of his ninjas said anything. They remained quiet, still bowing to him, merely awaiting orders. Fortunately, I already had a contingency measure in case something like this came to happen, Danzo continued. For the time being, given how outnumbered we are, the best course of action will be to flee the village. In order to do so, several of you will need to stay behind and fight Jiraiya's forces so you can buy the rest of us time to escape. Again, none of his agents ever protested. If Danzo told them to die, they would die. Since they believed that that was for the best of the village. The thought of questioning such orders wouldn't even cross their minds. On top of covering our escape, we need to take several crucial assets for our organization to continue, Danzo finally said, as his single eye rested on a particular group of ninjas. It's time to carry out Operation Rising Phoenix. A few minutes later, the Vanguard unit, led by Jiraiya, arrived at the entrance of Danzo's main base. It was an old, wrecked textile factory that had been severely damaged by the Nine Tails when it first attacked Konoha 16 years ago. Since then, a new textile factory was opened, and this one was left unused. That's it, until Danzo decided it would make a great hideout. Is this the place? Jiraiya asked the kunoichi besides him, who happened to be Hinata. Hinata's Tensegan flared for a second, and nodded. Yes. There are several tunnels that lead to a large underground base. There are several ninjas placed inside the factory, as well as many others in the base. As expected, they know we're coming, Jiraiya confirmed with a nod. What else? Do you see where Danzo is? Hinata's eyes scanned the underground base, until she finally found the man in question. Found him, Hinata said. He's in the deepest part of the base. He seems to be issuing orders to his ninjas. Some of them are gathering around him while others are coming up. I believe he's planning to send half his forces to stop us while he escapes with the other half. Just as I expected, Jiraiya said, smirking a little. Even if Danzo escapes our grasp, and I think it's a possibility the hunter unit is going to give him a really nasty surprise. Now, if he plans to ambush us, it would be best to send somebody who's utterly and completely expendable. Naruto. Hey. The blonde protested. Who are you calling expendable? Jiraiya's sweat dropped. I was talking about your clones. Naruto's anger dissipated, replaced by a feeling of embarrassment. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Though you could have worded it differently. Naruto-kun, we have no time for this. For each second we stall, is one more second we give Danzo to escape, Haku reminded him. Oh, yeah, sorry. Naruto replied, making his favorite hand seal. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 100 Naruto clones popped into existence. Without waiting for the original to issue a command, the orange and black-clad army poured into the abandoned factory like predators breaking to their prey's lair. And just like they had expected, the Root Umbu ambushed them. 2 Root agents leaped from their hideouts, weaving the same set of hand seals. Water release, water wall. The 2 Root ninjas expelled a stream of water through the hole in their masks, quickly flooding the floor of the factory. As this happened, other 2 Root ninjas appeared, weaving a different set of hand seals from the first 2. Lightning release, thunderbolt. Their hands started to crackle with electricity, before they shot lightning bottles from their fingertips at the ground below. The water conducted the electricity, instantly dispelling most of the Naruto clones. Good job guys, you just wasted that carefully prepared trap on a bunch of clones. One of the surviving clones boasted. Everybody, come inside. Everybody, watch out. Hinata warned the ninjas breaking into the factory. More Root agents remain hidden in the shadows. Expect another ambush. Just as Hinata had said, more masked Root Umbu jumped out of their hiding spots, and tossed kunai with paper tags attached to them. It didn't take a genius to realize what they were. Explosive tags. Take cover. Asuma warned. Those aren't explosive tags. Hinata shouted. And indeed, upon closer inspection, they could see they had both a different color, dark blue rather than the usual faint yellow, and sealing patterns. The mysterious paper tags started to glow with a pink light, and suddenly an array of seals quickly started to spread all around the ground. Once the array was complete, they started to glow with a blue light, and the effect was immediate. Ah, what the hell? Ino protested, as she was frozen in place. I can't move. Me neither. Sakura replied. These seals seems to form an energy field that paralyzes whoever gets close, Sasuke deduced. If we destroy the paper tags, it will be undone. And you think we're going to let you? A voice said from above, as more Root ninjas emerged from their hiding spot. All of them were carrying large sealing scrolls. Die. The ninjas above them unfurled the scrolls, whose contents were quickly unsealed, and the paralyzed ninjas found themselves about to be showered by a rain of multiple swords, kunai, shuriken, and other weapons and very sharp objects. Hinata, your turn. Naruto said. Hinata, who had remained behind, floated into the factory, before flying upwards, completely immune to the effect of the paralyzing seals. Since I'm not touching the ground, I'm safe from that trap, Hinata thought, as she made several hand seals. Tensagan Chakra Cloak. Hinata started to glow with a lavender aura. Truth-seeking balls. The Hyuga clan head created 2 dark orbs out of thin air. Silver Wheel Reincarnation Explosion. The 2 truth-seeking balls merged into a single energy orb, which exploded into a silvery tornado that began moving upwards, blowing the rain of weapons away, until it destroyed the roof of the factory. The tornado not only pushed the storm of steel away, but several of the root ninja were caught inside it as well. Most people present watched in awe at the sheer destructive display of the Hyuga clan head. Well done, Hinata. Jiraiya praised, snapping the others out of their astonishment, before using a fire jutsu on a section of the ground. The section now revealed a tunnel that led underground. Hinata and I will take care of this and secure the building. Naruto volunteered, as he proceeded to produce more clones. The rest of us, go downwards. Very well then, son. The Hokage agreed, before turning to the rest of his troops. Everybody, go inside. Beware of any traps. The entrance tunnel to the underground base was very narrow and only allowed them to move in rows of 1. Even if the tunnel itself was devoid of traps, such bottleneck was perfect for an ambush at the other end. Hokage-sama, there are a multitude of ninjas waiting for us to come out at the other side of the tunnel, one of the Hyuga Umbu accompanying them warned. As I imagined, Jiraiya said, as he bit his thumb. Don't worry, whatever they're planning, I'm sure they're not accounting for what comes next. At the other side of the tunnel, a large group of root ninja waited patiently for their enemies to appear. The sensors had already warned them of their presence, and now they could hear them talking, even if they couldn't discern their words. Several agents were surrounding the tunnel's exit, ready to strike at whatever came out of that gate. And it seemed it would be Jiraiya, the Hokage. Danzo had told them that he would lead the attack, and to make him a priority target. Yes, getting rid of that weak Hokage would be a huge service to Konoha. However, those who underestimate Jiraiya would pay for it dearly, and the Toad Sage was about to show why he was a living legend. Summoning Jutsu. There was a burst of smoke, followed by a large, 6-meter-tall toad, breaking through the tunnel, tearing it apart completely. The toad was blue-skinned with a yellow belly, holding a kanabo in one hand and a rectangular metal shield in the other. While the root agents didn't expect something like that to happen, they didn't hesitate and unleashed a barrage of elemental ninjutsu on the toad. Yikes! The toad cried, as he hid behind his metal shield. Sorry, Ryoko, but you were the best one to use for this situation. Jiraiya hastily apologized as he leaped above the toad. This place is too small to summon the larger toads, and Ryoko's shield makes him the perfect candidate for a meat wall. Though I better not say that out loud. Jiraiya thought. Aside from that, Ryoko also blew a huge hole in the wall connecting the tunnel, destroying the bottleneck and thus allowing the Konoha ninjas to pour into the base in large groups, while also using the giant toad as a meat shield. Goddammit, why is that when I'm summoned, is to be used as an improvised shield? Ryoko complained. It's because I carry a shield myself. Again, sorry, Ryoko. I promise I'll make up to you. Jiraiya told him, as he engaged in combat with a root umbu that carried 2 swords. You better. Ryoko complained, before he noticed what was going on. Hey, wait a minute, all these guys are Konoha ninja, what gives? Let's say we managed to find that they weren't as loyal to the village as we thought, Jiraiya replied, as he traded blows with the dual-wielding ninja. This is going to be rather complicated. The toad grumbled as he looked at the battlefield around him. You guys are wearing the same clothes and all that. It's okay. Just stay there and cover our ninjas as they enter this place. Jiraiya told the giant toad. A few seconds into the fight, circular ceiling patterns started to appear all around the ground. While some of them didn't know what they mean other than a potential trap, many others, specifically those who took part in the Kirigakure Civil War, remembered very well what was going to happen. Still, every ninja, root or otherwise, jumped backwards to give the seals space. You have to be kidding me. Sasuke groaned. The seals started to glow, until produced a burst of smoke each. And from the smoke, a humanoid mechanical construct emerged. Chakra golems, Jiraiya hissed, narrowing his eyes. Did Danzo steal the blueprints as well? These golems resembled greatly those used by the Blood Mist, except that they were black with red highlights instead of red, and had Konoha's crest on them instead of Kiri's. Jiraiya could also see that they had more sealing patterns written all over their steel plating than those Naruto and the others brought from Kiri. The fight had become much more difficult. What are those things? A Konoha Umbu asked. The chakra golems started to hum as the Fuinjutsu patterns across their chassis started to glow with a blue light, signaling that they had been activated. Recognizing the Konoha ninjas not affiliated to Root as enemies, the mechanical creatures stomped towards them. They're chakra golems. Mechanical constructs animated by Uzumaki Fuinjutsu and powered by chakra, Karen quickly explained. Some Konoha ninjas started to form hand seals, but the redhead interrupted them in time. They can absorb ninjutsu, so only those who are good hand-to-hand combat should fight them. Too bad we didn't brought Tenten-chan's team, Haku lamented. Gai-sensei and Lee-san would make short work of these machines. Thank goodness I'm here to trash these pieces of scrap, Sakura eagerly said, as she took a step forward while punching the palm of her hand. Come on. The Pinkette lunged towards an incoming golem, delivering a brutal chakra-enhanced punch to its chest, blowing a large hole on it. The force of the attack was such that the golem was hurled backwards, before slamming against a wall. Were those golems this fragile, or it's me who became stronger? Sakura wondered aloud, enjoying the situation. Who cares? The faster I can get rid of them. Guys, cover me while I trash these overgrown toys. Sakura dashed towards another golem. Two Root ninjas, a large man carrying a massive sword, and another, smaller man wielding blade tonfas. However, the two of them were unable to reach the Pinkette, as their weapons clashed against a katana and a shoto. Sasuke Uchiha was the one holding the blades parrying their weapons. If you want to touch her, you'll have to go through me first, Sasuke coolly said, as he spun around his feet, turning himself into a brief blade whirlwind, pushing the Root ninjas aside. Thank you, Sasuke-kun. Sakura said, as she was about to reach the second golem. Now let's turn you into scrap metal. However, before Sakura could reach, one of the seals in the golem's chest plate started to glow. Then, a circular sealing pattern spread from the golem's feet, covering an area of 2 meters in radius. And the moment Sakura entered the sealed area, she was paralyzed on the spot, much to her shock and confusion. What the? Sakura asked, as she struggled to break free. What's going on? Why can't I move? This is like being trapped by Shikamaru's jutsu. The golem stomped forward, and raised one of its massive fists in order to crush the Pinkette. Sakura let out a scream. Sakura! Sasuke shouted, as he tried to help her, but the large man with the broadsword got in the way. You're not going anywhere, Uchiha. The man shouted, as he brought his sword down, forcing Sasuke to parry. Get out of my way. Sasuke hollered, while delivering powerful and swift blows with his katana. Ice release, ice barrier. Just when the golem's fist was going to hit the defenseless Sakura, a wall of ice developed between the two of them. The mechanical warrior hit the frozen barrier, but only succeeded in cracking it a little. The cracks quickly disappeared as if the ice had a healing factor. As this happened, Karen rushed forward, making a hand seal. Adamantine sealing chains. Several chains wrapped around the golem, pulling it back, and thus releasing Sakura from the Fuinjutsu paralysis trap. Wasting no time, the Pinkette climbed the wall of ice, and used it as a springboard before jumping into the air. Heavenly Foot of Pain. Sakura landed feet first into the downed golem, the impact shattering it into tiny pieces of metal. She looked at Haku and Karen, and smiled in gratitude. Thank you, guys. A second later and I would have been a gunner, Sakura told them. It seems that this golem's no more tricks than those we fought in Kiri, Haku observed. Better advance with caution. Though we shouldn't spend too much time fighting these mooks, Shisui called, as he traded blows with another Tanto-wielding masked ninja. The Root ninja slashed at Shisui, but his weapon phased through him as if he was an illusion, before slowly vanishing. The real Shisui appeared from behind, and plunged his own Tanto into the man's back, killing him instantly. Danzo is probably preparing his escape as we speak. I sense more ninjas in the lower levels, but they're still, Karen relayed, as she directed her mind-eye of Kagura down below. I think they're planning a series of ambushes when we get down. Thus confirming that this is mere delay, Jiraiya stated. Half of you stay here and fight these root agents. Everybody else, with me. Let's go downwards. Don't let them advance any further. A female root agent cried. Shizun-chan, let's cover them. Time for our combo. Shisui called. Shizun nodded, and made a hand seal while taking her head back. Potion missed. Her cheeks puffed before expelling a stream of purple, poisonous gas. The root ninja immediately jumped back, careful not to let the gas even touch them. It was too late when they noticed Shisui weaving hand seals. Fire release, Great Fireball Jutsu. Shisui bred a fireball at the growing toxic cloud. Not too big, since he didn't need it to be large for what he was planning to do. The moment the fireball touched the purple cloud, it instantly ignited, producing a chain of explosions, making the whole underground base to shake. That's out chance. Now go. 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 The Hokage urged, as he dashed towards the stairs that led to the lower levels, followed by several of his ninjas. And, as expected, the moment they reached the next sublevel, they were welcomed by yet another ambush, with several root ninjas unleashing a barrage of elemental attacks, kunao and shuriken on them, followed by several chakra golems charging forward. However, there was a new element that wasn't present in the previous fights, large animals made of ink. Sai is here. Shikamaru pointed out. Can you guys see him? He's not fighting us directly, Ino said, as he made hand seal, in an attempt to sense him. An attempt that resulted in a success. He's hiding in a nearby storage room. He's probably drawing and animating creatures before sending them to fight us. That way, he can fight and help his friends without exposing himself, Asuma deduced. Cheeky bastard. I'll take care of him, Ino decided, as she started running towards the room Sai was hiding in. Ino, wait for us. Koji said, as he and Shikamaru rushed after her. No. The blonde replied, much to her teammates' confusion. I want to do this alone. There's something I need to tell Sai. Plus I may be able to end this in a non-violent way. Ino, Asuma said in a somewhat forewarning tone. I know you care about Sai. But he's with the enemy, and has always been. Don't let your feelings get in the way of what has to be done. Ino scolded, and averted her gaze, looking as if she was wrestling with conflicting feelings. Eventually, she returned her sensei's gaze. Don't worry, Asuma-sensei. I'm a kunoichi. I know what to do. And Ino went to face Sai alone. Super Beast imitation drawing. As expected, Sai was sitting alone on a half-empty crate inside one of the building's many storage rooms, calmly drawing pictures of various animals before bringing them to life and sending them to support his fellow root agents. Sai. A voice called. The pale boy looked up, and saw Ino glaring at him, a kunao in hand. Her eyes were glinting with anger, but she was doing an admirable job at suppressing it. Oh, Ino, hello, Sai said, giving her a smile. I wasn't expecting to see you here. What did I told you about faking a smile, Sai? You aren't fooling anybody, much less me, the Yamanaka heiress hissed. This smile isn't fake. I'm smiling because I like seeing you, Sai truthfully replied, as he furled his scroll, and stood on his feet. I enjoy and appreciate your company. Why, Sai? Why did you help Danzo? Why did you guys leak intel to the Akatsuki of all people? Ino angrily asked. I don't know. It's not my place to question Danzo-sama's orders, Sai replied, and Ino once again could tell he was being honest. But if he says that it will be for Konoha's benefit in the long run, I believe him. However, I must ask, how do you know Danzo-sama was responsible for the leaks? Root's security is tight when it comes to keep our operations a secret. If you don't remember, Sai, I'm not just a Yamanaka, but the clan heiress, Ino replied. While I wasn't as suspicious of you as others were, it took me no time to find that you were a spy. And with the mind fragmentation jutsu, I was able to see and hear through your eyes and ears as if they were my own. That can't be true, Sai said, looking a bit confused. A Yamanaka root agent that's stronger than you scanned my mind after all our meetings just in case you tried something like that. He never found anything. Quite pretentious to assume that guy to be stronger than me, don't you think? An annoyed Ino said, as she placed one hand on her hip. I did tell you that it's a jutsu I created, meaning that no other Yamanaka knows about it. And I refined it so I could create a shard of my mind so small, it could go unnoticed for anybody who would try to scan your mind, unless they knew what they were looking for. Sai smiled again. This time, it was a smile of admiration. So, you knew that I was spying on you. And used the opportunity to turn the tables on me. Truly outstanding. I had to admit that I underestimated you, Ino. Why are you smiling? Ino screeched, her face turning red. I pretended to be your friend, but I was just using you. Why aren't you angry at me? Why should I be? You were doing your job, nothing less, nothing more, Sai said with a shrug. The only thing I should feel is regret for letting me fall to your tricks. But I will suppress that feeling too. After all, emotions are the enemy of the ninja. Ino took a step backwards, his face no longer contorted with anger, but reflecting a look that was a bit of shock and pity. Just what they've done to you? Ino asked, her voice cracking with horror. I am a tool of Danzo-sama that he will use to shape the world into a better place, Sai replied, his cheerful demeanor, fake or otherwise, disappearing, as it was replaced by stoic determination. And tools aren't allowed to feel emotions. You lie. Even if it was a farce, I refuse to believe that all the time we spent together didn't influence you in any way, Ino replied, before narrowing his eyes. I can feel your inner turmoil. How you struggle to suppress your emotions. It has been increasingly difficult the more you got to know me, right? That's not true. My emotions are in check. My mind is clear, Sai declared. Ino shook her head, unconvinced. Chakra doesn't lie. I'm a sensor, remember? And your chakra fluctuates in a very irregular way. Your chakra isn't that of a calm person. Why do you care about how I feel? Sai asked. I'm your enemy. A ninja doesn't show compassion to an enemy. It's illogical, and goes against common sense. Maybe because I'm lying to myself. Maybe because I'm a love-struck fool. Maybe because I'm still an idiotic little girl pretending to be a kunoichi, Ino replied, shrugging. And humans are rarely driven by logic. And you still plan to fight me? In that condition, you will barely be able to stand against me, Sai replied. Why? You may think that emotions are a ninja's enemy. But I was taught that my emotions can also be a source of strength. When you fight to protect something you love. Ino began, as her body slipped into a fighting stance, while her face reflected nothing but determination. Is when a ninja's at their most powerful. Very well then. I believe no more words are necessary. Now, we fight. Show me this power of yours, Ino, Sai challenged. Ino's lips curved into a smirk. It will be a pleasure. True to his words, Sai didn't say anything. Instead, he pulled a smaller scroll, unfurled it, and started to draw something on it at a lightning speed pace. Super Beast Imitation Drawing. Several inky black snakes jumped out of the scroll, and quickly slithered their way towards Ino, hissing loudly as they came closer. The blonde kept calm, slowly walked back, and carefully eyed the drawn reptiles as they prepared to attack. The moment the snakes lunged at her, Ino pulled out several shuriken from her ninja tool pouch, and tossed them. The close distance made aiming much easier, and the momentum the snakes carried made them impossible to dodge, and thus they were turned again into small puddles of ink once the shuriken hit them. Ino then rushed forward, and her hands started weaving hand seals, just like Sai was busy drawing more pictures in his scroll. Ino finished her jutsu faster. Water release, water gun. Ino's cheeks puffed, before shooting several water bullets at Sai. Super Beast Imitation Drawing. Several large dogs emerged from his scroll. However, before the dogs could leave the scroll completely, the incoming water bullets destroyed them. One of the water bullets even hit Sai in the shoulder, dropping the root agent to one knee, while instinctively clutching the damaged spot to soothe the pain. You'd do well not underestimating me, Sai, Ino hissed, glowering at Sai. The pale-skinned boy stood back on his feet, and nodded. He stopped clutching his shoulder, and pulled another scroll, this one being larger. Of course. That was careless of my part, Sai said, as he quickly started drawing once again, his hand moving so fast it was almost a blur. I promise I will throw at you everything I have. Multiple ink bats emerged from the scroll, and flew at Ino in a circular formation, so the blonde wouldn't be able to destroy all of them at once. Not that Ino wasn't going to try anyway. Water release, water gun. Once again, Ino started to shoot small but deadly watery projectiles at the bats, each creature hit being turned into a small puddle of ink. And the bats were small enough that the bullets kept most of their momentum after destroying once. Unfortunately, there were many of them, and spread too wide to destroy individually. A shadow alerted Ino that the bats might be a mere distraction. Looking up for a split second, the Yamanaka heiress saw that Sai was riding a giant bird made of ink, and the pale root agent was still drawing more creatures to throw at her. Super beast imitation drawing. 4 tigers jumped from the scroll, and pounced at Ino, letting out loud roars. This is bad. I can't defeat him in direct combat, Ino forced herself to admit. Her hand drifted towards her ninja tool pouch, and grabbed something. Time for a different approach then. Ino tossed something to the ground, which exploded on contact, followed by a burst of smoke, and a gray cloud covering the area, and most importantly, hiding her from Sai's eyes. Sai commanded his bird to vigorously flap its wings, producing a constant gust of wind. The wind quickly dispelled the cloud of smoke. But when the smoke cleared out, Ino was nowhere to be seen, just Sai's ink tigers, confusedly looking around for their prey. The root agent was also confused as to where Ino could have gone. That's it, until Sai, perceptive as he was, noticed what was finally wrong with the current situation. There were 5 ink tigers, and he had only drawn 4. I admit, that wasn't a bad tactic, Ino, Sai said, as he began to pull 5 kunao. But it ends here. Sai tossed the 5 kunao at once at his ink tigers, all of them hitting the target with flawless accuracy. 4 of the tigers dissolved into a puddle of ink, while the 5th one burst into smoke, revealing Ino, who was clutching the knife now stabbed into her gut, as she fell to the ground. Don't worry, Ino, I won't kill you, Sai softly said, as his bird descended. But you need to surrender, otherwise I can't give you the medical help you need. Ino, still panting and heaving, shot Sai a murderous glare, before it turned into a smirk, much to the black-haired boy's confusion. Oh, it's you who's going to be in need of medical attention. And Ino poofed away, leaving nothing but a burst of smoke. A shadow clone. Since when did she dash? Sai asked aloud, before realizing that something was above him. Much to his surprise, that something was Ino, who was using chakra control to stick herself to the ceiling. Before Sai could react, Ino dropped from above. Sai was unable to move in time, and the Yamanaka heiress landed on his bird, but did so with such force, that the fabricated animal burst into multiple blots of ink, making the 2 ninjas fall to the ground. Ino ignored the pain, got on her feet as fast as she could, and hobbled her way towards Sai. This was her only chance to do it. Mental Scourge Jutsu. At such close range, the jutsu didn't miss, and the pale-skinned boy felt pretty to a short but intense headache. And he had seen that jutsu in action more times to know that the migraine could be the first of many if he wasn't careful. Alright then, let's see how well do you fight, Ino began, still panting and hurt, while she grabbed a couple kunao. Now that you can't rely on those little scribbles of yours. Danzo-sama trains all his agents to be more than just one-trick ponies, Sai stated, as he unsheathed his tanto. I can still fight even if ninjutsu is no longer an option. Ino frowned a little. Not because she knew he was speaking the truth, but because she also knew that not only was he better than her in close combat, but he made no signs of boasting. He wasn't underestimating her. Say what you want about Danzo, but the man knew how to train a ninja in order to be good at their job. Sai dashed forward, his tanto in hand. His steps were fast and precise. Ino had to take a step back and raise a kunao to preemptively parry an incoming slash. However, before she could counter-attack, Sai quickly attacked again, this time with a stab that Ino was barely able to deflect. Sai, however, managed to quickly strike Ino's wrists, knocking one of the kunao out of her hands. Shit! Ino cursed, as she jumped backwards, in a vain attempt to put some distance from Sai. It seems that now you're realizing the mistake of engaging me in hand-to-hand combat, Sai calmly said, as he dashed forward once again. As panic started to seep in, Ino's hand went to her ninja pool touch, and grabbed another smoke bomb. She noticed it was the last one. I definitely need to carry more, Ino thought, as she tossed the small orb into her feet, producing a burst of smoke, followed by a cloud of blackness. Just as expected, Sai broke his dash, and slipped into a defensive position. While the smoke screen was up, Sai would be blind while Ino could track him through her sensor abilities. A whirring sound warned him of an incoming attack, and raising his tanto, he expertly parried the 4 shuriken aimed at him. The shuriken came from there, he thought, as he dashed towards the spot he thought Ino was. But much to his disappointment, Ino was no longer there. He could hear the faint sound of quick footsteps, but he couldn't pinpoint where they came from, other than telling him that Ino had changed her spot. More shuriken, coming from a different spot this time. Once again, Sai prepared to block. But before he was about to do it, another whirring sound coming from behind alerted him of an attack coming from that direction. Sai quickly dropped into the floor and rolled, narrowly avoiding the steel stars. 2 different directions, she must be using a clone, Sai deduced. That moment, the smoke started to dispel, and the root agent could see the shape of Ino. He didn't know if she was the real one or a clone, but he didn't care. Even if she was the clone, destroying it would make the fight easier. So wasting no time, Sai charged towards her, tanto in hand. He could see Ino grabbing more stuff from her ninja tool pouch, just how many weapons it could carry. He rolled into the ground just as Ino tossed him a handful of kunao, before striking her. Sai's tanto slashed Ino's bare abdomen, resulting in a spray of blood, which confirmed that she had struck the real one instead of the clone. And indeed, he heard said clone poofing behind him. Ino stumbled backwards, and quickly started to heal her wound. Man, I'm going to be so pissed if this leaves a scar. Ino grumbled, as she tried to heal her bleeding wound. Your attitude is rather casual for somebody who just lost a fight, Sai said, as he prepared to strike again. Oh, I didn't lose, Ino said, sounding incredibly sure of herself. In fact, I just won, you just haven't seen it yet. You haven't lost that much blood to become delirious, Sai stated matter-of-factly. The smoke was now almost gone. You think so? In that case, take a look at where you're stepping, Ino said, as her eyes moved to Sai's feet. Even if it was most likely a ruse to distract him, Sai allowed himself to take a quick look down. Ino, however, didn't attack. She didn't need to. Because much to the pale teen's horror, he was stepping onto several explosive tags in the ground. In fact, the entire floor was littered with explosive tags. Move one step, and you'll blow up, Ino told him while she continued healing herself. And now you're going to tell me you have a way to counter this tactic, do you? That's what Sai wanted to say. But no matter what he thought, he couldn't find any solution to his problem. If he couldn't move, he couldn't defend from Ino's attacks. And given that the blonde removed his ability to use ninjutsu as well. So, while I was focused on finding you and blocking your ranged attacks, you were covering the floor in explosive tags, Sai guessed. A very clever strategy. I may not be the strongest ninja out there. My taijutsu is so-so, and my ninjutsu is mostly suited for support rather than direct offense. However, if there's something I'm proud of being, that's being observant as hell, Ino told him. When I use smoke bombs, I always notice that the opponent will either try to find me, or get ready for an ambush. But almost nobody takes into account that I might use the cover of the smoke to set up a trap. Now tell me, how do you plan to get out of this situation? I'm afraid I have nothing, Sai admitted, dropping his tanto, and holding his hands in the air as a sign of defeat. Rooted in a single place, I have no means to continue fighting. Rooted? Ino repeated, as a small laugh escaped her mouth. Was that a pun? I found it fitting for my situation, Sai replied. You may not be as hopeless as I thought. Ino said, her smile softening. What are you going to do with me? Sai asked. I'm going to capture you. Then, I'll hand you to Hokage-sama, who will decide your fate, Ino stated, before a realization dawned upon her. Wait, are you going to let me capture you? I thought you root guys were ready to die before letting the enemy win. In the past, I would have moved and let the explosion kill me, Sai stated in a jarringly neutral tone. But now, I don't want to. I don't want to die. Not because I'm afraid of dying but because I don't want to die this way. Not like this. Maybe Danzo-sama was right. I let you influence me in a much greater way than I had expected. In the end, I couldn't help but underestimate you from the very beginning. And now I pay the price. Don't give to despair, Sai. Life has many surprises in store for us. Some of them are good, Ino said, as she walked towards the brunette, and placed a hand on his forehead. Sleep. Sai dropped down instantly, with Ino quickly catching him before he could hit the floor, and carefully placed him down. Okay Sai, let's see what your mind hides. With some luck, Danzo might have said in your presence where did he plan to flee, Ino wondered aloud, as he placed both hands over Sai's head, and started to scry his mind. And as she had hoped, Sai's memories proved to be a treasure trove of information regarding Root and Danzo. She kept digging further and further, until she reached a certain point where she was forced to stop. All color disappeared from her face upon hearing Danzo talk about the operation, Rising Phoenix, and all what it entailed. No. No. Ino said in horror, as she quickly got up. This is bad. I have to tell Hokage-sama. Fortunately for her, her telepathy would allow her to contact Jiraiya immediately, and warn him about what was going on. She simply prayed it wasn't too late. Chapter 79. Operation, Rising Phoenix. Or, cool names to disguise uncool actions. Even if Root put up a formidable resistance, they were still unable to beat the assault led by the Hokage himself. The Root agents were strong opponents, and the Chakra Golems didn't make things any easier. But due to the Konoha ninjas having both numbers and power on their side, they soon plowed through their ranks, and arrived at the lowest part of the level, where Danzo was gathering most of his troops. I can sense Danzo. He's at the other side of that door, Karen said, focusing her senses into the next door. I find it odd that he hadn't fled yet, Jiraiya pondered. In that case, it's obvious that he's preparing a trap, Hokage-sama, Shizun warned. He probably knows that you're leading this attack by now, and maybe he wants to kill you and as many ninjas with you in one swift more. How much he's underestimating me is insulting. Still, better not let the guard down, Jiraiya said, as he nodded towards Karen. How many people does he have with him? Still quite a lot. I'm counting 38, plus some golems, Karen replied, before frowning and crossing her arms. Just how many people does he have working for him? With the amount of ninjas we fought against, you wouldn't think he'd still have this many. Danzo's days to run unchecked will come to an end before the day is over, Jiraiya stated. His actions not only put one of my sons in constant danger, but he's the reason my other son is in a coma. Everybody, stand back. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Jiraiya created a single clone, before forming a Raise-Non with one hand. The clone started to infuse the blue sphere with fire chakra, which started to expand and turn reddish-yellow, almost if the Toad Sage was holding a little sun in his hand. Fire release, Raise-Non. Jiraiya slammed his fire attack into the door. The attack quickly expanded forward and exploded into a fiery inferno, which not only obliterated the door completely, but opened up a massive hole in the wall as well. Many Root ninjas who were near the wall were blown away. As Karen had said, the room was filled with Root ninjas, a few Chakra Golems, and lastly, Danzo himself. Oddly enough, they didn't appear that they were doing anything, much less trying to escape. Jiraiya was about to order everybody to attack when Ino's voice echoed in his head. Everybody, stop. It's a trap. Jiraiya heard Ino shouting inside his mind. Not only Jiraiya could hear her, but pretty much every ninja with him, as well as those who remained in the upper levels fighting Root Ninja and ensuring that no reinforcements reached Danzo. Ino? What's going on? Jiraiya asked. Shisui and Shizun's apartment. Given that both Shisui and Shizun were taking part in the raid of Root's facilities, they had hired a team of genin in order to watch over their kids. The mission was given to a genin team that had graduated from the academy that very year. Given that it was such a simple task, their jonin sensei decided to let them on their own, and do more productive things with his time than watching over babies. It would be a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Thankfully, both Shiro and Shizuka weren't making any ruckus. The two of them were playing with their toys in their playpen, while the genin boredly watched TV. The monotony, however, came to an end when somebody knocked the door. "I'll go," one of the genin, a girl with brown hair and glasses, said as she got up and walked towards the door. "Who's Dash?" However, she didn't finish those words, as the door was kicked open, hurling her backwards. Two root ninja broke into the house, the first one tossing several kunao at the brown-haired girl, killing her almost instantly. "Hey, what's going on, Dash?" The only male of the group, a boy with brown hair, a red headband and a band-aid on his nose, was also silenced mid-sentence when a tonto slashed his throat. The remaining genin, a girl with black hair tied in a ponytail, screamed loudly as she, overwhelmed by terror, jumped out of the window. One of the root agents was going to chase her, but he was stopped by his partner. "Forget about her, there's no time. Let's grab the target," the root ninja said. His partner nodded, and the two men, after a quick search, took the two Uchiha babies, and ran away from there. Rin's apartment. Unlike most of her friends, Rin hadn't been among those called to form the large group that would raid Danzo's facilities. Jiraiya knew that Danzo had people shadowing her for obvious reasons, so he decided it was for the best to leave her out. Not only she wasn't part of the group, she wasn't even aware that such operation was taking place right now. Again, that would be a decision Jiraiya would come to regret. Rin had decided to use her spare time in order to do some laundry. Then, she'll head downtown and do some shopping. Not just groceries, but she also felt like indulging on a whim. "It's been a while since the last time I had strawberry cake," Rin wondered aloud, as she folded a clean bedsheet. "I think I could make some, and bring it to Kakashi's team so we can eat it together." When Rin turned around to grab another sheet, she found herself staring at a masked ninja. Before the girl could react, the masked ninja quickly waved his hand at her, spraying her with some sort of greenish powder. "What the?" Rin slurred, as she quickly lost consciousness. The root ninja caught her before she could hit the ground, carried her over his shoulder, and left the scene the same way he had entered it, through an already open door. Downtown Konoha. Given that team trainings were suspended until Hagane recovered, Hanabi Hyuga found herself with more spare time than usual. She often trained on her own with the Moon Acolytes in the use of the Tenseigan, but her progress had been slow at the very best. She decided to use some of her spare time in paying a visit to her comatose teammate. On the way to the hospital, she was thinking how empty and sterile his room looked, and thought that maybe a vase of flowers could make the place a little more livelier. Plus Hagane would appreciate the gesture once he woke up. "Thank you, be sure to come again," the clerk, a middle-aged woman with brown hair, told Hanabi. "And I sincerely hope your teammate wakes up soon." "We all do so, Mrs. Yamanaka," Hanabi said as she exited the door. "We all do." However, the moment the young Hyuga set a foot on the street, a dart hit her in the neck. Dropping the flowers, she immediately plucked it out of her neck, and after her battle instincts kicked in, activated her Tenseigan for potential enemies. However, the poison the dart was coated with was fact-acting, and the young Hyuga suddenly fell to the ground, motionless. "Hanabi?" Mrs. Yamanaka asked, as she left the counter and headed out of the shop. "Hanabi?" Suddenly, two masked ninja came out of nowhere, pushed Mrs. Yamanaka away, took Hanabi's unconscious body, and ran away, leaping from one roof to another. "Those men! Somebody stop them!" Mrs. Yamanaka screamed. "They kidnapped a girl." Konoha Hospital. Hagane's room looked as if a bomb had blown inside. Not just because an entire wall, the one that faced the street, was missing. The rest of the walls and floor were covered in dirt, crack and debris, the bed and the rest of the furniture were completely wrecked, and most importantly, the corpses of two root ninjas laid there. For these two ninjas, tasked with the kidnapping of Hagane, had the misfortune of running into Tsunade as they carried on with their mission. However, The fact that they decided to attack her was pure idiocy on their part, element of surprise or not. Needless to say, it had been a very short fight. What happened here? A nurse asked, as she entered the room. Her eyes widened in horror when she saw its state. Tsunade-sama. It's okay, Tsunade said, turning around. She was holding Hagana's unconscious body in her arms. I'm fine, and so is him. Those root agents, not so much. What happened here? The nurse asked. Apparently Danzo wanted to take my son as a souvenir from Konoha before leaving for good, Tsunade said. And if I didn't have to take care of my son, I'd give that one-eyed bastard a piece of my mind. With my fists. Guess that Jiraiya will have to do it for both. Ino explained everybody what the operation, Rising Phoenix entailed. While Danzo and his cronies escaped, half of his forces would remain in the lair in order to keep the raid division busy, while small commandos kidnapped certain individuals that would be necessary for a new Konoha, individuals with great power and potential, but young enough to be manipulated. Those targeted are Shiro and Shizuka Uchiha, Rin Nohara, Hanabi Hyuga, and Hagana Senju, Ino finished. No. Shisui shouted. Hokage-sama. We need to dash, Shizun was going to say, but Jiraiya already knew what she wanted to tell him. Go. I'll send you reinforcements whenever I can. Jiraiya told. Shisui and Shizun nodded, and the two black-haired ninjas quickly left the lair, undoing the path they walked to reach there. Wait a minute, if Danzo isn't here, who is this guy? Shikamaru asked, drawing the attention to such fact. An imposter? Somebody under a transformation. According to Sai's mind, it's a genjutsu, they heard Ino's voice say. Sharingan. Suzuki's bloodline limit flared to life, but all it did was to feed his confusion. My Sharingan doesn't notice anything. I don't sense anything either. What's going on? Karen asked. There's no genjutsu that can fool both the Sharingan and a sensor of my skill. Actually, there is, Kurane solemnly said, as she took a step forward, looking at the alleged Danzo in the eye. There is a bloodline limit that makes genjutsu so real that your mind is unable to tell it apart from reality. Even if you're a sensor or possess a jujutsu. The bloodline of the Kurama clan. Suddenly, Danzo, his ninjas and chakra golems all vanished, being replaced by a single individual, somebody wearing dark brown robes, and their face obscured by an umbu mask. Bravo, Kurane-sensei. Took you long enough, the robbed figure, a woman, said in a cold but mocking tone. Yakumo? Is that you? Kurane asked. Why are you working for Danzo? But the figure didn't say anything. Just raised a hand and made a hand seal, before vanishing as well as if she was never there. Several explosions rocked the place. Danzo was planning to bury us alive. Jiraiya said in realization. Everybody, out. Go, go, go. As the Konoha ninja present there fled the scene before the underground lair collapsed under their heads, they all realized how dangerous a foe Danzo was, and how far was he willing to go to see his goals completed. The moment Hinata had heard what Ino said about Hanabi's kidnapping, she instantly shot into the sky, using the hole in the ceiling her previous attack had caused. She didn't even say anything to Naruto, though if he heard the same thing as she did, not only would he understand, but bolt to the hospital as well to check on Hagane. Hinata frantically scanned the whole village from above, in a desperate attempt to find her little sister's chakra, but after a few minutes, she had to give up. Six Paths chakra was incredibly potent, and through the Byakugan or Tensagan in her case it shone with such intensity it was impossible to miss. Meaning that they had already taken her out of the village. Hinata expanded her area of vision as much as she could, trying to catch a glimpse of Hanabi's chakra, but to no avail. However, even if she didn't see Hanabi, her sight caught something that merited her attention, masked ninjas moving towards the north. Not all of them walked the same routes, but it seems they had the same destination in mind. I don't have any other leads, Hinata said in resignation, as she focused her eyesight to the north. A feeling of hope swelled in her heart once she caught a glimpse of Hanabi's chakra. It was very weak. They had probably put chakra dampening seals on her to prevent her escape, but it was no mistake, that was Hanabi. Hang on, Hanabi-chan. Her entire being filled with determination, Hinata shot forward, flying faster than any bird, faster than any previous time she had flown, pushing her chakra to its very limits. Such effort, however, paid off when Hinata caught the kidnappers, a group of 4 ninja, one of them carrying Hanabi on his back, and the other 3 acting as escorts. The moment they saw Hinata zooming in, they instantly placed themselves in a defensive formation, with the man carrying Hanabi in the middle. Hinata floated above them, her Tensagen glinting with a dangerous light. "I'll say this once," Hinata began, her tone cold as ice. "Leave my sister this instance, and I won't even try to capture you." The reply to her demand came in the form of several kunai with explosive tags attached being tossed in her general direction. With a telekinetic blast, she repelled the kunai which were flown away in different directions, before exploding a couple seconds later. "I see you made your choice," Hinata's voice was unflinching. Her hand reached back, and pulled her collapsible chakra bow. "I'll make mine then." Lightning release, thunder arrow. Hinata shot several arrows made of pure lightning in quick succession. The root agents, however, were fast enough to jump in time and dodge the attack. "Quickly, go to the meeting point," a root agent said, as he unsheathed 2 swords, and charged at Hinata. "We'll buy you some time." "Negative. If the hostage stays here, she'll be forced to hold back in order not to harm her," the root agent carrying Hanabi replied. "We can use her as a human shield if needed." "You bastards!" Hinata shouted, her face turning red with anger. "Very well then," another root agent, this one wielding a Kusarigama, agreed. "Though be careful. Danzo-sama won't appreciate if the girl is hurt. We also have an opportunity to catch another Tensagen wielder, so let's make the most of this," the third root agent said, as his hands flew through hand seals, before clapping his hands together. "Fire release, Foxfire." Several fireballs appeared around the root agent in a circle. The masked ninja started to make several quick hand motions, launching the fireballs with each one. Hinata expertly dodged the incoming fiery missiles. The fact that he was floating made it even easier, but she realized of 2 things thanks to her Tensagen. The first one was that the caster could control the fireballs, and those she dodged turned around and flew back at her. The second was the ninja wielding the 2 swords took advantage of her predicament in order to land a hit when she was wide open. Fortunately, the Hyuga clan head had a solution for both problems. Heavenly spin. Still midair, Hinata started to rotate, turning into a spinning sphere of chakra, which both successfully repelled the incoming fireballs, and blasted the attacking root ninja away, his swords falling from his hands. Once she stopped spinning, she made a couple hand seals, and dived at the ninja who had used the fire jutsu. Lightning release, thunder palm. Hinata was ready to strike her electricity-imbued palm into her enemy, but she was forced to abruptly stop when the man carrying Hanabi placed himself between the 2 of them, and hastily floated back. "See? Told you this would give us an edge," the man carrying Hanabi said. As Hinata floated back, the ninja with the Kusarigama tossed the iron weight of his weapon at her, which wrapped itself around her legs. Hinata was caught off guard when a sudden force pulled her down. "I have her. Prepare the chakra suppression seals," the root ninja said, as he pulled Hinata down. "That wasn't very intelligent on your part," Hinata hissed, making a single hand seal. Hinata's body started to crackle with electricity the chain transmitted, instantly shocking the ninja into unconsciousness. "2 down, 2 more to go," Hinata said, as she imbued her hands with electricity again, and dived at the fire specialist. Like it happened before, the man carrying Hanabi quickly jumped between the 2 of them, but this time Hinata was expecting it. Carefully measuring her movements, she dispelled the electricity of her hands as she wrapped one arm around Hanabi's waist, while pointing her other arm forward, releasing a powerful kinetic blast that both hurled the 2 root ninja back, while propelling Hanabi and herself in the opposite direction. "Good, I don't have to worry about you getting hurt anymore," Hinata said, as she gently placed Hanabi on the ground. She then turned at the 2 remaining root ninja, who were getting back on her feet. Too bad for them, the fight was already over. She made several hand seals, in order to deliver the finishing blow. Tensagen Chakra Cloak. Truth-Seeking Balls. Silver Wheel Reincarnation Explosion. Like she did not long ago, Hinata merged her two black orbs into a single energy sphere, which exploded into a silvery tornado that blew the two root ninja away. Checking her surroundings to make sure there were no enemies around, Hinata quickly turned back to Hanabi, kneeled before her, and started to remove all the chakra-dampening seals around her body and her eyes. Good, she doesn't appear to be hurt, Hinata said, as she checked her body. She noticed a small puncture in her neck. Guess that's how they took her down. There's no way they could have defeated her in a straight combat. Anyway, I better take her back to Konoha. Sorry, Jiraiya-sama, I will rejoin the mission once my sister is safe and sound. Hinata picked Hanabi bridal style, and flew back to the village. Meanwhile, not far away from there, another group of 4 root ninjas were carrying the unconscious Rin towards their intended meeting point. Little did they know that a certain somebody was spying them. And while Danzo trained all his agents to learn to know when somebody was following or spying them, there was no way Danzo could have trained them to avoid this kind of enemy. Because the spy was flying above them, but letting them some head start so they wouldn't see her if they looked up. She was looking at the marching group through binoculars she was holding on one hand. She used her other hand to tap an earpiece. Guys, target located, Fu said, her eyes fixed on the foursome. Around 300 meters from my position to the north. Good job, Fu-san, Guy's voice said from the other day. His voice sounded far more professional, and was devoid of the usual enthusiasm, but was just as energetic. Kids, time to show these unyouthful jerks what we do with kidnappers. Yes sir. Other 3 voices choruses in unison. Do you guys want me to join you? Fu asked. For the time being, no, Niji's voice replied, making Fu pout a little. You're more useful watching from above. But feel free to lend us a hand if it appears that the enemy has the upper hand, or if we can't rescue Rin-san. Understood then. You guys want all the fun part to yourselves, Fu replied, as she went back to her binoculars. I'll stick with the boring job. Even if Fu hoped that the fight would be a tough one and the close combat squad would be forced to call for help, it wouldn't the case. Double Konoha whirlwind. Guy and Lee, shining with the faint green aura provided by the first Chi Lystal gate, appeared from behind the lush trees, delivering a flying roundhouse kick to a root ninja each. Run. The root ninja carrying Rin urged. His partner nodded, and continued forward. Unfortunately for them, Guy's team had already a plan for that. Manipulated tools, rain of steel. Swords, spears and morning stars rained from above, abruptly cutting their escape, before Tenten landed in front of them, carrying 2 large battle axes on both hands. Going somewhere? She asked, as she took a battle stance. The man carrying Rin took a step backwards, while the other one unsheathed a katana in order to fight Tenten. And as this happened, Niji landed beside the kidnapper, took Rin from his arms while pushing him away. Rin is safe. Finish them off. Niji said, as he retreated with the still unconscious Rin in his arms. Very well then. Tenten said, as she started to glow with the same aura as Guy and Lee. Gate of opening, open. Raging blade storm. The 2 root agents were unable to do anything to block, dodge or counter Tenten's devastating technique. Not far away from there, Shisui and Shizun were leaping from one tree branch to another, in hopes of finding the ninjas who had kidnapped their children. Thankfully, Ino had already alerted the hunter division of the kidnappings, and decided that rescue the hostages was of higher priority than capturing Danzo and his cronies. Even then, the Uchiha couple just couldn't leave the rescue of their children to a third party. Danzo is so dead after this, Shisui seethed. I don't care if Hokage-sama or anybody else thinks it's wrong or whatever. That man will die by my hand. Shisui, Shizun called him. Right now, I hate Danzo as much as you do, but we should focus on getting our children first and foremost. They will be bringing them to him right now, Shisui reasoned. So if we track Danzo, we'll track our children. Okay, makes sense. Shizun admitted. But do we know where is Danzo? Where are we going, by the way? From what I heard the other hunter teams say, Shisui said, tapping his earpiece. All the root ninjas were heading north. So far, the only country in that direction is the Land of Sound, the former land of the rice fields. I don't think I'm following. There's nothing of interest in that country, at least not after Orochimaru abandoned it. Shizun replied. After Orochimaru and his forces vacated his lair, it was deemed safe for the inhabitants of the land of the rice fields to go back to their previous homes. To make sure such thing wouldn't happen again, Konoha would send teams every couple of weeks or so to check that everything was fine and the small country wasn't invaded again. The fact that all the returning teams didn't report anything out of the ordinary meant that Orochimaru didn't return. Yes, but think about it. The first time we found Orochimaru's base was because his actions drew our attention. It's possible that he recovered his old base, but this time he decided to be more discreet about it, Shisui explained. We do know Danzo and Orochimaru were close in the past, to the point that Danzo nominated Orochimaru to be the fourth Hokage. And Orochimaru is part of the Akatsuki. It's obvious that he was the one Danzo has been selling the information to on the other Jinchuriki. I don't think he made it his main base again. No, that one has to be somewhere else. But I'm sure he's still using it as an outpost and maybe meeting point. Suddenly, both of their earpieces started to crack with some noise, before a voice spoke. Shizun? Shisui? Do any of you copy me? A calm voice asked. Kakashi. Shizun replied, recognizing his voice. This is Shizun. Shisui is here with me as well. Any news? Yeah. We've just intercepted a group of root ninjas. After a quick fight, we defeated them. They were the ones carrying your children. Don't worry, we checked them, and they don't appear to be harmed. Both Shisui and Shizun let out a huge sigh of relief. You have no idea how happy we are to hear those news, Kakashi, Shisui said, his voice recovering his usual warmth. Remind me to buy you a drink when this is over. I'll be sure to check on that, Kakashi replied. Anyway, Tamaki is going to shoot a fire jutsu into the sky. That's our position. Come here to pick your kids. As soon as Kakashi said that, the two Uchiha saw a fireball shooting into the sky, before exploding in a shower of orange and yellow sparks. Wasting no time, the Uchiha couple headed to the direction of the improvised flare. Konoha Hospital. When Naruto saw the massive hole in the hospital's front, just when Hagane's room was supposed to be, his heart sank. But upon entering the hospital and asked, he was very relieved to see that Tsunade had stopped the potential kidnapping of his adoptive brother. The blonde wasted no time, and rushed to the room Tsunade had moved Hagane. It's a good thing that the two of you are safe, Naruto told Tsunade after greeting her. Yes. It's such luck I work here. It allows me to visit Hagane as much as I want. And the attack happened just when I was about to pay him a visit, Tsunade said. Do you know something about Kaida? Was she kidnapped as well? Naruto shook his head. I sent a few clones to check on her. They found her in a clothing store, shopping. It seems that Danzo didn't target her for some reason. Tsunade let out a sigh of relief. It's good to hear that. Maybe because he ordered to kidnap Rin as well, who does have the wood release, and couldn't afford to spare people to kidnap the two of them, Naruto reasoned. Though, speaking of Rin, I really hope that both she and the others can be rescued before they lose their tracks. Forests to the north of Konoha. Danzo and 8 of his ninja were resting in a small clearing they found in the forest. Well, to be fair, only Danzo was resting, sitting against a tree, while the rest of his men were watching for potential pursuers. Not that they minded, they literally lived for Danzo. Danzo-sama. One of the ninjas, a woman wearing a wolf umbu mask, walked to him. I'm afraid I have bad news. The extraction teams failed their missions, and all the targets had been retrieved by enemy forces. Danzo, as usual, didn't react. Or didn't make his reaction known. Either way, his body language didn't change. It's unfortunate, indeed, but even then, they fulfilled their purpose, Danzo cryptically said. I'm afraid I don't follow, the root agent asked. Getting my hands on at least one of those bloodlines would have been a major boon for my plans. However, that's not the only reason I ordered the extract ions, Danzo began. I knew that, if several high-profile bloodline limit carriers were kidnapped, Jiraiya would focus all his forces to their retrieval, freeing the rest of our men. Such as the ones carrying all our archives, scrolls containing secret jutsu, and the blueprints of the Uzumaki Chakra golems. I see. Truly a genius strategy, sir, the female agent complimented him. Danzo-sama. Another of his agents shouted, jumping down from a nearby branch, landing in front of him. We saw a flare not even a kilometer south of our position. Our pursuers are way closer than we had expected. In that case, Danzo said, as he picked his cane, and used it to help himself back to his feet. They won't take long to resume the chase. We need to reach the land of sound before Jiraiya's forces close the gap. Yes, sir. And with that, Danzo and his men resumed their exodus. To the south, Shisui and Shizun had finally met with Kakashi's team. On top of Kakashi and his students, there were more ninja present, such as Kiba's mother and sister, Tsum, and Hana and Yuzuka, Niji's father Hisashi Hyuga, and some other ninja they didn't recognize, though they could see all of them were suited for tracking. My babies. Shizun said, as she rushed towards Hana and Tamaki, who were holding a baby each. Shizun scooped the two of them on one arm each. Oh, I'm so glad you're okay. Once again, thank you guys, Shisui softly said, as he joined his wife. Anyway, now that that's out of hair, shall we chase that one-eyed bastard? Tsum asked. After pulling such a shitty stunt, I want to hack him to pieces and feed him to the clan's dogs. Mom. Hana protested. You know I'm joking, Hana-chan, Tsum said with a dismissive hand wave. We'd never feed our dogs something so disgusting. But yeah, harming children is a big no-no for our clan. If I get my hands on him, he won't come back in one piece. I agree with that sentiment. However, Shisui interjected. I must ask you another favor, and make sure to take care of Shiro and Shizuka until this is over. Shisui-san. What do you mean? Hana asked. It isn't obvious? I'm going after Danzo, Shisui said, as his hands clenched into fists. That bastard had caused enough harm to the Uchiha clan, and this was the last straw. That man will die by my hand. I understand, Tsum said with a nod. Had Danzo harm any of my kids, I would have felt the same. Don't worry, Uchiha, your pups will be fine under our care. Shisui nodded back. Thanks again, Tsum-san. I'll make sure to repay you for this, Shisui then turned at his wife. You coming? Do you really need to ask? Shizun replied, as she returned her kids to Tsum and Hana. Even if it was rather odd seeing the rather mild and tame Medicnin so thirsty for blood, given the circumstances, it was understandable. Let the rest of us accompany you, Kakashi offered. Chances are Danzo won't be alone. Plus you'll need us to follow his tracks. Very well then. Come on everybody, move. Almost a kilometer to the north, Danzo's group continued their journey towards the land of sound. They were mostly unperturbed, until Fu, the Yamanaka redhead and the squad's sensor, perked up. Worried, he dashed closer to Danzo. Danzo-sama, a large group of ninja is coming close, the Yamanaka stated. Despite the urgency of the situation and the message, his voice was still calm. I'm sensing some rather powerful chakra signatures among them. Danzo took a couple seconds to process the information, and come up with a course of action. I see. Since all the targets had been recovered, they're focusing all their efforts in capturing me, while ignoring my other fleeing agents, the one-eyed man deduced. A sound strategy indeed. What should we do, Danzo-sama? Fu asked again. Diving our forces would be folly, since they'll chase whoever group I'm part of. It's very likely that they have a sensor in their group, or some specialized tracker, Danzo replied. No, I'm afraid that the only possible solution is to delay them as much as we can in order to widen the gap. Listen everybody. The rest of the ninjas escorting Danzo immediately turned their attention to him. We're being chased by a large group of hunternin. It's more than likely that they'll catch on us before we can reach a safe haven. In order to do so, somebody needs to stay and delay them. Everybody except Fu and Torun, stay here and prepare an ambush. Fu, Torun, you shall continue with me. Yes, Danzo-sama. All his ninjas chorused in unison. To the south, the group of pursuers led by Shisui and Shizun continued their chase of Danzo and their men. But mostly Danzo. Danzo left most of his men behind. Hisashi warned the others, his Byakugan active. They're setting up several traps. They're planning to ambush us. A diversion to make sure we are unable to reach them, Kakashi quickly deduced. What should we do, sensei? Tamaki asked. Try to go around them. That would make us waste time, and Danzo would gain a lead, Kakashi said, shaking his head. Then the other possible solution is to plow through the ambush, right? Kiba asked. But that's also going to delay us a lot. Not if we copy their strategy, Kakashi rebutted. Danzo decided to leave some of his forces behind, so we'll do the same. Most of us will stay and take the ambush head-on so the rest can continue the chase unimpeded. Needless to say, it was obvious that those who would continue the chase would be Shisui and Shizune. The two of them quietly moved to the back of the group. Here they come. Get ready. Hisashi warned. Watch out for wires and explosive tags. And just like the former branch house Hyuga warned, the hunting group was soon bombarded by a barrage of elemental jutsu, as well as a shower of kunao, shuriken, and other weapons. But they were prepared. Wind release, great breakthrough. Pouring as much chakra as he could into the jutsu, Kakashi blew a powerful wind current from his mouth in order to push the incoming barrage back. Even if his attack alone was insufficient, he wasn't the only one to jump forward to take the brunt of the attack, as Hisashi and Tamaki soon followed. Heavenly Spin. Death Steel Ring. The two ninja, leaving a reasonable distance from each other, started to quickly spin until they were turned into living tornadoes, deflecting most of the incoming attacks. Following this, Shino extended his arms, and two swarm of angry beetles poured from under his sleeves, flying at the attacking root ninja, while trying to push them to the sides. Shisui-san, Shizune-sensei, I created an opening. Better take it as long as I can keep it, Shino warned the couple. Very well then, thank you Shino-kun. Shizune said, as she dashed past him. Stay safe until we return. Shisui added. Shisui. Danzo may be old and retired from active duty, but he isn't a pushover. Kakashi warned the Uchiha. Remember that he's strong enough to be considered for the position of Hokage. Don't worry, I know that. Shisui shouted back, before he set his eyes forward. I underestimated Danzo once. I won't make that mistake again. North of Shisui's position, Danzo and his remaining two escorts continued their escape. Fu was monitoring through his sensing abilities how the ambush was going. And while it worked as intended, it didn't throw all the pursuers off of their backs. Danzo-sama, the ambush has stopped most of the pursuers, but I'm afraid that two people are still chasing us, Fu told his leader. They're getting closer and closer with each passing moment. I doubt we'll reach the land of sound before they catch us. Just two? Danzo asked. At the very least, they no longer had the advantage. While fighting them might be tempting, we better not take any risks. Wait a minute, this chakra. Fu said, his eyes opening wide. One of the two people chasing us is Shisui Uchiha. Shisui Uchiha. Danzo repeated. This changed everything. Torun, how far are we from the land of sound? Not much. The valley of the end is just ahead, the masked Abarame replied. Very well then. That shall be our battlefield, Danzo decided. Danzo-sama? Are you planning to fight Shisui Uchiha? Torun asked. While he was going to question his master's orders, he felt it was too risky to stop and fight when they were so close to their goal. 8 years ago, I had one of Shisui's eyes under my power, until we regrettably lost it to Akatsuki, Danzo began. Shisui's eyes have the power to cast a genjutsu so powerful, it can control the mind of others. It's so powerful is impossible to resist, and the only known way to break it is to bring the victim to a state of near death. Now, another chance presents before us. It is imperative that we collect at least one of his Sharingan. With that power, rebuilding root, and setting Konoha straight would be a child's play. Very well then, Danzo-sama. What is the plan? Fu asked. We will meet them in the Valley of the End. Meanwhile, you two will keep them busy while I unseal my arm, Danzo instructed. The two root agents nodded. We won't fail you, Danzo-sama. Shisui and Shizun arrived at the Valley of the End shortly after Danzo did. Oddly enough, the leader of Root and his two cronies weren't fleeing anymore. Instead, Danzo had removed his allegedly injured arm out of the cloth he used as a cast, while the other two watched. However, the moment the Uchiha couple arrived, the two underlings immediately went to face them. "It seems that you guys finally stopped running," Shisui said, as he unsheathed his tanto. "Good, it would be kind of annoying if we had to chase you all the time." "You will pay for you did, you monsters," Shizun shouted. Shisui then noticed something. What is Danzo doing?" And indeed, Danzo's right arm was covered in 3 large golden bracers, secured with thick locks. Danzo was calmly undoing the first lock. "I see, the bastard was hiding some sort of trump card, am I right?" Shisui asked. "And you're supposed to buy him time while he removes all those things. Danzo-sama won't have to sully his hands fighting the two of you if we're able to get your eyes ourselves," Torin stated. "My eyes, so that's why you stopped. Makes sense." "Oh well, you know what they say," Shisui said, as he adopted a fighting stance. "Never stop an enemy when they're making a mistake." And with that, the Uchiha vanished, reappearing behind Fu, his tanto ready to strike his back. "You're a Yamanaka, right? I don't want you messing with our minds. You go down first," Shisui said as he attacked. However, his tanto clashed against another one, as Torin had parried Shisui's strike just in the nick of time, allowing Fu to move away from him. As Shisui vanished again, Shizun leaped at them, her hands forming a seal, and her cheeks puffed. Poison mist. Shizun exhaled a massive cloud of purple gas, forcing the Root operatives, and even the nearby Danzo, to jump away from the incoming hazard. That moment, Shisui reappeared behind the fleeing Root agents, his hands weaving seals at an imperceptible speed. "There's no way you can escape from this," Shisui said, as he finished the seal sequence. "Fire release, Great Fireball Jutsu." Shisui exhaled a massive fireball at the Root agents, sandwiching them between the flaming attack and his wife's poison mist. The two attacks soon collided, resulting in a massive explosion. The Uchiha then reappeared alongside Shizun. "We had a good combo there," Shizun pointed out. "Do you think it was enough?" When the smoke and steam raised by the explosion dispelled, a pair of charred logs were floating in the water. "I'm afraid it isn't," Shisui said, as he tensed up. "Phew, Torin," Danzo called, as he started to undo the second lock. "Stop fooling around. As long as you don't damage his eyes, everything is fine. Use your best jutsu. Especially you, Torin." "As you order, Danzo-sama." The two of them replied at the same time. Emerging from underwater, the two Root ninjas charged at the Uchiha couple, with Torin oddly enough undressing as he ran. Fu pulled out several kunai with explosive tags attached on them, jumped and tossed them at the Uchiha couple. Shizun's answered this by making a chain of hand seals. Water release, water wall. The water beneath their feet started to shake, as a barrier of water emerged in front of the two, blocking the kunai, followed by a chain of explosions, which created yet another cloud of steam. And from said cloud of steam, Fu appeared, tanto ready to skewer the Uchiha. Shisui's Sharinon started to spin, and as if everything moved in slow motion, expertly dodged the thrust, before slashing Fu's own throat. However, rather than blood, water started to pour from the wound, before the alleged Fu burst into water. A decoy. Shisui realized too late. A splash from the back alerted them from the ambush, and saw Torin, not wearing any clothes from the waist up, charging at them, whose entire skin had turned purple for no reason, both arms extended as if trying to grab them, rather than punching them. Acting purely on instinct, Shisui grabbed Shizun's hand, made a hand seal with the other, and body flickered several meters away to put some distance. Which is what Fu was expecting. Mental Scourge Jutsu. Shisui felt a short but very painful and throbbing migraine assaulting his brain. A feeling of uneasiness washed upon him. What the hell was that?" Shisui asked, feeling a bit dizzy. "Damn, I know that jutsu. The Mental Scourge is a Yamanaka clan jutsu that prevents the target from using ninjutsu," Shizun explained. "It doesn't last forever, but usually last long enough for the caster to finish the battle by then. And if I try to use ninjutsu? Shisui began. You'll feel like your head will explode, Shizun finished. Fine. I see, no ninjutsu then. I'll have to get creative, Shisui stated. Then get those creative juices flowing, because they're coming. Shizun warned, as Fu and Torin were once again charging at them. Very well then. Given that ninjutsu is not an option, I'll take them head on, and try to create an opening for you to exploit, Shisui told the medic nin. Got it. Shizun nodded. Also, make sure the masked guy doesn't touch you, Shisui warned. His skin is covered in million upon millions of diminutive petals. I don't know what they do, but better not to take any risks. The Sharingan is sure something, to see the secret of my trump card with a mere glance, Torin said. Not that it will help you in the long run. Shisui dashed forwards towards the incoming ninjas. His tanto clashed against Fu's, and while they were locked, Torin took advantage of the moment in order to punch Shisui. Shizun, however, intervened just in time by delivering a double kick into Torin's face, hurling him backwards. Shizun, take off your shoes, now! Shisui yelled. But try not to touch them. Not wasting any time to ask why, Shizun quickly kicked her shoes out of her feet, making sure not to touch them with any other part of her body. I thought we'd be safe if our skin remained untouched, but it seems they can propagate through inorganic matter as well, Shisui thought, as his Sharingan stared at the sinking sandals. If it wasn't for his bloodline limit, his wife would pretty much be dead now. Fu snapped him out of his brief thoughts when he attacked again. They seemed to be entirely focused on Shisui. Better for me then. Shizun thought, as she pulled 3 senbon, and tossed them at Fu, who was forced to disengage Shisui in order to deflect the attack. Shizun decided not to give them a moment to breathe, and his hands started to form hand seals. Water release, water dragon jutsu. The water around them started to gather and formed a massive serpentine dragon. Letting out a distorted roar, the dragon lunged at the 2 root ninjas, who once again were forced to jump back. With all these water around, somebody with a water affinity has the advantage, Torin mentioned. We won't be able to touch Shisui as long as his wife is defending him. In hindsight, this was a poor choice for a battlefield, Fu observed. What shall we do? Should we try to take her out first? No, even without ninjutsu, Shisui is still the more dangerous of the 2. We should neutralize him before your jutsu wears off, Torin replied. Then, there shouldn't be any problem taking care of Shizun. Shisui it is, then. But we'll have to make sure Shizun doesn't jump on us like she's been doing so far, Fu replied. Leave that to me, Torin said, as he clapped his hands together. Upon separating then, a dark purple gaseous mass started to form, growing bigger by each second. Make sure you don't touch this, poison cloud jutsu. Torin blew the cloud forward, creating a smoke screen that quickly advanced towards the Uchiha couple, which were forced to take a few steps backwards. Shizun, I have a plan to take them out, Shisui said. It's kind of risky, and we need to split up for it to work. Don't worry, whatever you have thought, I trust you, Shizun replied. You're thinking in running around the cloud, right? Jackpot. You go to the right, and I'll go to the left. Make sure to strike when the opportunity arrives, Shisui instructed. Understood. The Uchiha couple took different directions, surrounding the expanding swarm of microscopic beetles from opposite sides. Even if they couldn't be seen, Fu was able to sense their positions and from where they were coming. Torin, here they come. Fu warned. The first one to appear was Shisui, holding several shuriken in both hands, which he tossed at Torin. The Abarame jumped backwards, as he skillfully deflected all the steel stars with several swipes of his tanto. And here's Shizun, Fu said, just as the black-haired medic nin made her presence known. Shizun rolled up her sleeve, revealing her wrist-mounted senbon launcher, which fired multiple needles at the Yamanaka root agent, who, like his partner before, also deflected with his tanto while jumping backwards. Both Fu and Torin noticed that Shisui and Shizun were pushing them against each other, and thus made sure to keep their distance. So, this is your plan. Getting me to accidentally infect Fu with my Rinkaichi. Torin asked. Not bad, but it's not going to work. Our teamwork has been honed over years of training and doing missions together. I know how to fight without endangering him. Yeah, that was our plan, Shisui admitted. And even if you caught up, it was too late. Shisui then motioned both hands in opposite directions, much to Torin's confusion, upon he saw a faint light flicker around them. This is... Torin said in realization. Phew, watch out. But like Shisui said, it was too late. The shuriken Shisui had tossed a moment ago had ninja wire attached to them. With that quick motion, Shisui maneuvered the shuriken to move around Phew, tying the ninja wire against him. Damn! Phew cursed, as the ninja wire immobilized him. Shizun, now! Shisui shouted. The medic nin already charged at the immobilized Yamanaka, and delivering a flying kick to the chest that sent him into the air, helped by Shisui pulling him as well. Torin was unable to move in time, and the orange-haired man crashed into him. Even if they only touched for less than a second, it was already enough. Multiple purple spots appeared around Phew, which started to grow as the beetles devoured his flesh and chakra, and used them to breed at an alarming rate. Arg! Phew screamed, as he futilely tried to wipe the tiny insects away from his body. With each passing second, the pain was becoming more and more unbearable. Phew, hold on. Torin said, as she rushed towards his fallen teammate. However, before he could help him, Shizun landed in front of him, making a splash when her feet touched the water. Two kunao appeared in each of her hands, and started to deliver quick swipes at the root agent, trying to keep him away from the agonizing Yamanaka. Get out of the way! Torin desperately shouted, as he countered Shizun's attacks with blows of his own. Unfortunately, in his urge to help his partner, he had taken his eyes from Shisui, and that moment of distraction is all what the Uchiha needed to dash and plunge his tanto into the Abarame's back, piercing his heart. Unlike Phew, Torin's death was quick and painless. Wordlessly, Shisui walked towards the still agonizing Phew, and quickly stabbed his tanto into the Yamanaka's chest, putting an end to his misery. Okay, done, Shizun said, panting a little. Well done. Thanks. They thought they could beat me if they cut me off of my jutsu. But this is what happens when you underestimate the Uchiha clan, Shisui replied, as he turned his head towards the last remaining enemy. Now, time to end Root forever. Fortunately for Danzo, his minions had bought him enough time to undo all the locks protecting his right arm. Not to mention that they had wore Shisui and Shizun down a little, making the upcoming fight easier. Phew and Torin were two of my best agents, Danzo replied, as the last bracer fell down, revealing a bandaged arm. Finding suitable replacements is going to take quite some time and effort. Guess that you don't care about the lives that had been lost here, do you? Shisui spat. You only see them as tools you can replace. Ninjas are nothing but tools, Shisui. All of us, Danzo said, as he started to unwrap the bandages of his arm. However, if I can take your eyes, their deaths won't be in vain. Both Shisui and Shizun's eyes grew wide open after most of the bandages were removed, revealing Danzo's right arm. It was much paler than the rest of his skin, but the most horrifying part was the multiple Sharingan eyes on it. Danzo also removed the bandages covering his right eye, revealing yet another Sharingan. Now, let's begin. Chapter 80. Revenge of the Uchiha. Or Control Z. Valley of the End. Shisui and Shizun stared wide-eyed at Danzo's right arm, its many Sharingan eyes wiggling and moving around, as if trying to scan the surroundings. Not that Danzo could see through them, since those eyes weren't connected to the brain via nerve cords. Just, what the? Shizun mumbled, as she tried to shake off the shock. You just weren't happy with letting me stop the Uchiha insurrection, Shisui seethed, his hands clenching into fists. You just had to desecrate their bodies for more power, didn't you? I just let Konoha see the Uchiha for what they truly are, savages who let their emotions run wild and unchecked, Danzo replied, sounding as stoic as ever. A ninja should never let their emotions get in the way, they're nothing but a distraction, an obstacle to overcome. For your apparent dislike of the Uchiha, you seem to like the Sharingan quite a lot, Shizun pointed out. It would be quite illogical to discard it, Danzo flatly replied. The Sharingan is one of the most powerful bloodline limits in existence. If only there was a way to harvest such power without having to deal with the Uchiha and their many flaws, that's why I tried to take your children with me. Those kids are still young and malleable. They could be raised into the perfect ninjas, which would also serve as the foundation of a new and improved Uchiha clan. A new generation of Sharingan-wielding ninjas that wouldn't be corrupted by emotions and would live and die for Konoha. You're sick. Shizun shouted. How can you talk in such way? Strip children of their humanity in order to turn them into living weapons. Treating ninjas as nothing but tools. Ninjas are nothing but tools, Danzo insisted. The moment we wear a forehead protector, we become the tools that will protect Konoha and slay its enemies, and sacrifice for Konoha if the need arises. A tool can't have room for emotions or loved ones. And the moment a tool can no longer be used, it must be discarded and replaced by something new. That's the way of the ninja. Your way, maybe, Shisui replied. One doesn't need to be a genius to see that you two are angry with me to the point of hatred, Danzo stated. And that's why you are going to lose. You let your emotions guide your actions. You may think that they're a source of power, but the power they can grant is very finite. Nothing compared to what discipline and determination can bring. How can you say you protect Konoha, if you don't have loved ones? If you don't allow yourself to love? How can you be motivated to do what you do, if in the end all you're doing is protecting people that mean nothing to you at all? That's an egotistical point of view, Danzo replied, shaking his head. So, you only protect Konoha because it benefits a few people who are close to you? I don't need to have bonds to do what is right. And what about the information leak to the Akatsuki? Shizun brought up, pointing an accusatory finger at him. How can you claim that it was for the good of Konoha? The Akatsuki are merely tools that can be used and manipulated for our sake. By hunting Jinchuriki, they deprive the other villages of their power, Danzo explained. And how is letting the Akatsuki get their hands on them any better? They have 6-tailed beasts captured, for Kami's sake. Shisui pointed out, though he left out one half of the 9 tails. Do you know how much harm can they do should they decide to unleash them? Akatsuki might have the means to control the beasts, but so do we. Once Akatsuki captures all 7 foreign Jinchuriki, all we need to do is assault their base in a megakur, Danzo said. Seeing Shisui and Shizun's confusion and shock, he decided to elaborate. Jiraiya's spies got multiple hints that lead to the leader of Akatsuki being in control of a megakur, so that's where the captive-tailed beasts must be held. All we need to do is destroy AIM, take the tailed beasts for ourselves, and then Konoha shall reign supreme over the elemental nations. You're sick, Shizun hissed. No wonder you were always passed over for the title of Hokage. I will always do what's best for Konoha, Danzo defended. No matter how other people see me or my ideas, I will always do what is right. Nothing you ever did could be considered as right under any sane morality system, Shisui spat. But trying to kidnap our children, you're not getting out of this alive. I see you're talking a lot, but so far, you didn't make any move, Danzo replied. Or do you hope to take me down with your words alone? No, I was merely stalling for time, Shisui replied. He let out a sigh of relief. As he shot Danzo a bright smile. And, there. I'm no longer under the effect of that Yamanaka jutsu that stopped me from using my own. Thanks for patiently waiting until the effect wore off. Danzo emoted for the first time that day, as a scowl developed in his face. You cheeky bastard. You're a strong ninja, I'll give you that. But unfortunately, your eyes are the only part of you worth salvaging. Yes, I believe that time for words have passed, Shisui said, as his smile disappeared, replaced by a look of subdued anger, his Sharingan glinting with a red light. Now it's time for you to suffer just retribution for all the Uchiha you indirectly killed, as well as kidnapping my children. All who met Shisui Uchiha would describe him as an anomaly. While most of the Uchiha clan members back in the time when the clan boasted more than 100 ninja used to grow either prideful, violent, or reserved, often believed due the Sharingan's influence. Shisui, however, was neither. He was a ball of sunshine, always smiling, cracking jokes, greeting politely everyone, even strangers, willing to support others when they were at their lowest, always willing to forgive and forget anybody who had wronged him. People said he was the light that shone in a clan engulfed by darkness. One of the few Uchiha who rejected the hatred that cursed their clan, and embraced the will of fire that represented Konoha. Today, however, Shisui wasn't like that. There wouldn't be any mercy nor forgiveness. Just this time, Shisui would embrace the darkness and the hatred that coursed through the veins of any Uchiha. He wasn't worried, for he trusted his wife would snap him to his senses if he delved too much into the darkness. Still, it would be better to end this as quickly as possible. Reaching into his ninja tool pouch, Shisui grabbed a pair of smoke bombs and tossed them forward, creating a huge cloud of smoke, while Danzo made 3 hand seals. His Sharingan impaired, Shisui used the body flicker to appear behind him, and sank his tanto into his back, making sure to pierce his heart. Not finished, he pulled the tanto with one hand as he made hand seals with the other. Fire release, burning edge. The blade of his tanto was covered in a cloak of flames. Spinning over his heels, Shisui delivered an horizontal slash at Danzo's neck, cleanly separating his head from his body, who fell forward with a thud. "Nobody shall suffer for your machinations anymore, Danzo," Shisui told his enemy's corpse. Shisui put off the fire of his blade, before sheathing it back, as he walked towards Shizun. "Man, that was easier than I thought." His minions were a far greater challenge, Shisui said, sounding rather cheerful. Guess his age wore him down far more than the third. Suddenly, Shizun's expression was one of horror, much to the Uchiha's confusion. "Shisui, watch out." The Uchiha instinctively turned around, and his eyes caught sight of Danzo, his head still attached to his body, ready to thrust a kunao into him. Thankfully, he still had enough time to unsheath his tanto and parry the swipe before it could touch his skin. Shizun rushed forward, making hand seals. Water release, water gun. Shizun jumped into the air, her cheeks puffing, before expelling from her mouth multiple water bullets at the leader of Root, who disengaged Shisui and jumped backwards several times in order to dodge the attack. Shisui quickly rejoined his wife. "Just, what the hell happened?" Shisui asked. "I swore I killed Danzo. Maybe a clone. Or a genjutsu." Shizun offered, being just as confused as her husband. Shisui shook his head. "Clones immediately dispel or break down the moment they take fatal damage. And I doubt that Danzo can put me under a genjutsu. Besides, you saw me killing him as well, right?" "Yes," Shizun replied. "You killed Danzo and then, his body disappeared and reappeared behind you, completely unharmed. Save the 3 of us the bother of a battle, and surrender already," Danzo offered. "Do it, and I promise the woman will live." "You're far more senile than I thought if you think we're going to surrender," Shizun shouted. "Come Shizun-chan. Let's attack together. We need to find out whatever's that jutsu," Shisui said, as he charged forwards. "I'm right behind you," Shizun said, running as well. Danzo was as nonplussed as ever, though one could see a little of his annoyance. It made Shisui even angrier, the fact that the Root leader wasn't even taking this fight seriously. However, as they charged, Danzo brought his hands together and started to weave hand seals. Shisui immediately recognized those seals. "Shizun-chan, scatter," Shisui warned, as he rushed to the left. Shizun nodded and headed into the opposite direction, just as Danzo was about to fire his jutsu. Wind release, vacuum bullets. Danzo spat multiple air bullets in a wide range, trying to hit both Shisui and Shizun, though mostly the former. Thanks to his Sharingan, Shisui was able to pinpoint their trajectory and gracefully dodge all of them, while making several hand seals of his own. Fire release, Phoenix Sage Fire Jutsu. Shisui expelled multiple fireballs at Danzo in return. Danzo, however, also had a Sharingan, which allowed him to easily dodge them. However, he was so focused on Shisui, he didn't notice Shizun getting close to him, preparing a jutsu of her own. Potion Mist. Once again, Shizun cast her signature jutsu, expelling a purple cloud of toxic gas that quickly engulfed Danzo. However, even if the Root leader held his breath in time, Shisui's fireballs ignited the poisonous cloud, resulting in a massive explosion. Shizun and Shisui quickly jumped back, landing near each other. Did that get him? Or did he escape again? Shizun asked, frantically looking around. My Sherry Non saw him being incinerated by the explosion, Shisui said, as his eyes wandered around, trying to look for Danzo. I wouldn't count him out yet. They both were warned by a loud whirring sound coming towards them. Turning towards the direction of the sound, they saw two shuriken flying at them. The shuriken were engulfed by several blades made of pure wind. Shit! Shisui cursed, as he and Shizun jumped in opposite directions once again. And once again, the attacks were aimed at Shisui. Unfortunately for the Uchiha, his Sherry Non didn't catch them in time, and was unable to dodge it completely. Even if he dodged the shuriken themselves, their wind aura slashed his side, resulting in a stream of blood coming from it. Arg! Shisui shouted, as he took his hand to his wound. Shisui! Shizun screamed, rushing towards him. Wind release, vacuum blade. Danzo, who was a few meters in the direction the shuriken came from, held another two shuriken in his hands. He infused them with wind chakra from his mouth, enveloping them in a razor wind aura, before tossing them again. Shizun's hands weaved seals as fast as her dexterity allowed her. Water release, water wall. Using the water of the valley, a thick watery barrier emerged between the shuriken and herself. The wind-enhanced shuriken tried to force their way through the barrier, forcing Shizun to pour more chakra into her jutsu, until Danzo's attack was finally repelled. Phew! Shizun sighed in relief. But her relief was short-lived when, through the corner of her eye, saw Danzo rushing towards the now defenseless Shisui. Oh shit! This was just a distraction. Danzo reached Shisui, and catching him by the neck in a very strong grip. The Uchiha coughed blood. Now, time to recover what should be mine, Danzo calmly said, as his other hand shot at Shisui's eye, his fingers curved as if they were claws. However, before he could grab Shisui, Shizun appeared beside them, and grabbed Danzo's arm before he could gouge her husband's eye. You won't touch him! Shizun yelled, before slapping an explosive seal on Danzo's back, and sending him flying with a well-placed kick to the chest. While he was in the air, Shizun detonated the explosive tag, blowing Danzo's body to bits. With the root leader out the way, for the time being, Shizun directed all her attention to her husband. Shisui, are you okay? I've been better, Shisui said, coughing more blood. Thanks. That's the second time you saved my ass. Shizun didn't say anything, pulled a kunai, and used it to cut Shisui's shirt, leaving him completely exposed from the waist up. Heh, not that I don't love it, but I'm afraid that this isn't the best moment to get intimate. Shisui replied. Shut up, you dummy. I needed the clothes out of the way if I'm to treat your wounds, Shizun said, as she placed her hands on his slash wound, which started to glow with a green light. Relief washed over Shisui's body as the healing chakra slowly but surely repaired the damage done to his body, as well as replenishing some of his energy and chakra. Then, Danzo reappeared a few meters in front of them as if he was a ghost, once again completely unharmed. He brought his hands together, making a hand seal. Release. Shisui's Sherry Non noticed how Danzo's chakra changed. Did he thought that Shisui had put him under a genjutsu? Well, maybe he should have, given that ninjutsu wasn't giving them any results. Shizun-chan, hurry, I don't think he's going to stay there and let you heal me, Shisui urged his wife. Just a second. Shizun told him, as he finished healing the injury. But much to Shisui's confusion, Danzo did not attack. He just stayed there, slowly breathing in and out, as if tiring to regain his energy. And, done. Shizun said, removing her hands from her husband's exposed torso. Just try to make sure you're not hit on that spot again. Despite the medic nin's warning, Shisui had the feeling that Danzo would focus on that area the most. Speaking of Danzo, Shisui noticed something about him. Or better said, his arm. Two of his Sherry Non were closed. It was then when a realization dawned upon him with the power of an avalanche. Of course. How didn't I realize what he was using, Shisui said in realization. All those Sherry Non, it makes perfect sense now. Tell me Danzo, how do you know about Izanagi? You could have no idea of all the things I know about. Especially about your clan, Danzo replied. And if you knew what I know, you'd surrender your eyes to me without further resistance. Izanagi? Shizun asked. It's an Uchiha forbidden jutsu, Shisui began. It's a bit hard to explain. Once activated, as long as it lasts, the caster pretty much becomes a genjutsu. How does that work? Another way to explain it is a jutsu that allows the caster to manipulate reality, allowing him to decide what is real and what is not, Shisui explained. If the user suffers a crippling or fatal injury, he can simply turn that injury into an illusion, negating it. Wow! Shizun was amazed. How a jutsu so powerful could exist. Please tell me there's a way to counter it. Because if Danzo can use that jutsu indefinitely. Don't worry, he can't, Shisui said, much to Shizun's relief. The jutsu lasts about a minute, give or take, and once the time runs out, the caster of the jutsu loses a Sharingan permanently. I see. That explains why some of Danzo's Sharingan are closed, Shizun observed. Yes, but he still has plenty to spare. Though, another of the jutsu's drawback is that consumes a lot of chakra. Danzo must have quite the impressive. Shisui's words died in his mouth. Another realization hit him. Wait, that hand seal, he wasn't trying to undo a genjutsu. He undid the Izanagi in order to conserve his chakra. It also begets the question on how he's able to sustain those many Sharingan without six paths chakra, Shizun noted. Kakashi is in the prime of his life, and just one leaves him pretty winded. It doesn't matter. Shisui said, as he grabbed his tanto, charging forwards. Quickly, before he reactivates his jutsu again. Too slow, Danzo said, as he started to make hand seals, even if they weren't those of the Izanagi. As for young Shizun's inquiry, I think this may hint her towards the answer. Would release, nativity of a world of trees. The valley started to rumble, and from the water below around them multiple trees started to emerge, forcing the Uchiha couple to abort their attack. The hell? He can use wood release too? Shisui asked in shock, looking around at the growing trees. Just how many bloodline limits did this guy steal and graft into himself? Just those that matter, Danzo calmly replied. The tailed beasts, Shizun said in realization. That's why he wants to get their hands on them. With wood release, he'll be able to put them under his control, like Hashirama did decades ago. And I believe the Sharingan serve a similar purpose. Very clever, Shizun. A mostly astute observation. Not that it changed anything, Danzo replied. Now please die, both of you. Danzo made another hand seal, and the trees and roots all shot towards the Uchiha couple. An attack from so many directions would be impossible to dodge. There was only one thing Shisui could do. Shizun! Shisui shouted, pulling his wife towards him, and wrapping his arms around her in a protective manner, before the two of them were buried under an avalanche of green. Even if Shisui and Shizun had no way of knowing it, this was the first time Danzo used wood release in actual combat. He obviously trained it in secret, but never used a jutsu of such magnitude. Orochimaru splicing his genes with those of the first Hokage gave him a physical boost, but was unable to control wood release properly. That changed, however, when Sai brought Rin's severed finger. Analyzing the finger, the root scientists found out that the way Rin's DNA was combined with that of Hashirama was way superior to anything Orochimaru attempted. And with sample of flesh, blood, and bone tissue, his scientists were able to tweak Orochimaru's body modifications in order to make them more stable. This finally allowed Danzo to use and control wood release. Indeed, sending Sai along just the group that went to aid the Kirigakure rebels was one of the best decisions he ever made. That should be it, Danzo said, allowing himself to breathe in relief. He calmly walked towards the spot where Shisui and Shizun had been. That jutsu had cost him some precious chakra, but thankfully it had been worth it. Plus it was better than sacrificing more Sharingan with Izanagi. Better finish the fight now before more of Shisui's allies could show up. Danzo knew he could beat the Uchiha, even with Tsunade's protege supporting him, but his odds wouldn't be that good if more people joined the fray. He knew for sure none of his men would walk near the valley. Hopefully, at least one of the eyes is still intact. As Danzo prepared to remove the vines, something burst from underground, much to the elder's surprise. Shisui and Shizun, wrapped around each other's arms and any worse for the wear, were inside what appeared to be a giant ghostly green ribcage. An equally large skeleton formed around the ribcage, before it generated skin and muscles, and finally, armor. What the? Danzo mumbled, as he was forced to jump backwards. You aren't the only one with a hidden surprise, you son of a bitch. Shisui angrily shouted. A drill-like spear appeared on the construct's right arm, and thrusted it at him. Now die already. Damn it, no time to reactivate the Izanagi. Danzo distressingly thought. This is my only chance to survive. Suddenly, a massive tree emerged from Danzo's chest, tearing his white shirt to pieces, and successfully stopping the incoming spear attack. Danzo detached himself from the tree, as he landed a few meters behind. Don't let him reactivate the jutsu. Shizun urged him. Shisui nodded, and made a hand seal. Susanoo, Tsukumo. Shisui's construct fired a barge of green glowing chakra stakes at Danzo, but sadly, it wasn't fast enough, and the root leader quickly made the 3 hand seals in order to reactivate Izanagi. Many of the missiles pierced him, but Danzo simply disappeared, before reappearing completely unharmed. I didn't know you could use Susanoo, Danzo commented. I knew Itaki and Sasuke could use it, but I didn't even cross my mind that you had access to it as well, despite having 2 main Jikyoshari non. Such an oversight almost costed me dearly. Yeah well, like I said, don't presume that you know everything about me, Shisui spat. You're about to arg. Shisui fell to one knee, and started to cough blood again. His Susanoo quickly disappeared, as the Uchiha reached for his eyes. Shisui! Shizun shouted, kneeling beside him. I'm okay, Shisui weakly said. I forgot how much chakra this shit consumes. I don't think I'll be able to do this again. I don't understand. Sasuke-kun doesn't have this problem when using his Susanoo. Shizun pointed out. Sasuke has an eternal main Jikyoshari non, which reduces the Susanoo's chakra cost to negligible levels. Plus he has a better hang of this power than I do. I only used it once before, and it was even before we started to date, Shisui explained. I see. Anyway, let's not despair, Shizun said, as she applied the mystical palm jutsu to Shisui once again, while also helping him back on his feet. I have faith that we can win this. You're grossly underestimating me, Shizun-san, Danzo replied. I'm sure you think that, because you were trained by Tsunade, that alone gives you an edge over me. Her grandmother and Hashirama-sama's wife, Mito Uzumaki, was my Jonin sensei. With all respect to Mito-sama, she did a piss-poor job with you then, Shizui angrily spat. I'm afraid that yes, I quite never lived up to her expectations in certain areas. But that's irrelevant now, Danzo said, while making more hand seals. Wood release, acid spore cannon. The water started to shake again, and a single, large green vine emerged from down below. Said vine was crowned by a large flower. The flower opened its petals, and fired a greenish-yellow blob at the Uchiha couple. Jump! Shizun shouted. Both she and Shisui jumped in opposite directions. The missile crashed against the vines they were standing on until then, exploding into a yellow cloud. With a hissing sound, the concentrated corrosive spores quickly consumed them. The flower continued firing its acid projectiles at Shisui, while ignoring Shizun. While this forced Shisui into the defensive, it gave Shizun a chance to counter-attack. She quickly formed several hand seals. Water release, water severing wave. Shizun expelled from her mouth an extremely thin, extremely pressurized stream of water towards the vine, cleanly cutting it in half. Good job, Shizun-chan. You have an awful habit of declaring victory way ahead of time, Danzo commented. Danzo's statement was followed by 3 more flowers emerging from underwater, with 2 of them firing at Shisui, and the third one focusing on Shizun. The 2 of them dodges the acid projectiles while trying to get close to Danzo, but found it increasingly difficult to do so. Shit, this guy caught on, and is preventing Shizun-chan and I from fighting together. Shisui thought, as he tried his best to dodge the corrosive missiles, which were fired at an increasingly faster pace. However, I think I have an idea of what will be Danzo's next move. Shisui tried to shot a glance at the root leader, but he was nowhere to be found. As he jumped back in order to dodge 2 acid shots, Danzo reappeared near Shisui, kunao in hand. End of the fight. Time to die, Danzo said, as he prepared to attack. I knew you'd use those attacks as a distraction. Shisui triumphantly said, as he jumped back while making hand seals as fast as possible. Fire release, meltdown. Shisui exhaled a massive fireball that quickly engulfed Danzo. Rather than shooting forward, the fireball continued expanding in every direction, until it also engulfed the 3 acid-spitting flowers, quickly reducing them to ashes. Danzo, however, reappeared a few meters from him, once again not worse for the wear. Shizun also took the chance to quickly regroup with her husband. Godamit, stop not dying. Shisui complained. Not dying. Shizun repeated, shooting her husband a confused glance. How do you call what he's doing? Shisui replied. You're making this infuriatingly difficult, Danzo stated, even if his voice or body language didn't betray any sign of anger. Look who's talking, Shisui spat back. Danzo and Shisui continued to trade glares. The root leader was studying the young Uchiha, wondering what other nasty surprises he had hidden. He could also see that, despite being much younger, Shisui appeared to be far more exhausted than Danzo was. Then again, Shizun appeared to still have enough stamina to spare. It seems that using Susanoo drained quite a lot of his chakra. He might not be used to it. It's unlikely that he'll use it again, Danzo thought, before quickly reprimanding himself and pushing that thought out of his head. No, I can't afford to think like that. I already underestimated Shisui once, and nearly costed me the fight. I need to fight thinking that he can unleash that jutsu at me at any moment. In that case. Danzo bit his thumb, and started to make hand seals. Of course, Shizun and Shisui immediately caught what he was going to do, but reacted a bit too late. You can feel proud of yourselves. Not many foes push me so much as to rely on this, Danzo replied, before slamming his hand into the ground. Summoning jutsu. In a burst of smoke, a large, orange elephant-like being appeared, creating small waves of all the water that it displaced upon appearing. Despite having a trunk and long fangs like an elephant, it also had orange fur, and its legs ended in long, sharp claws. What the hell is that? Shisui asked. A Baku, Shizun replied, sounding rather worried. It's a very powerful summon. It's said it can devour dreams and nightmares. We better watch out. Danzo jumped onto the Baku's head, and without having to tell it anything, the beast charged forward. Oh shit, here he comes. Shizun shouted. Shisui started to make hand seals. Don't worry, I'll stop it on its tracks. Fire release, great fireball jutsu. Once again, Shisui breathed a massive fireball at the incoming monster, leaving a trail of steam as it flew. The Uchiha was confident the Baku wouldn't be able to dodge it, given both its size and its current momentum. Of course, Danzo was about to prove why he was a contender for the title of Hokage. As it rushed, the Baku took a deep breath, before releasing a stream of pressurized air from its trunk. Danzo followed, making the hand seals of another wind jutsu. Wind release, vacuum great sphere. Danzo exhaled from his mouth a rather large sphere of concentrated, pressurized air. His jutsu merged with his summon's attack, forming a massive gale that pushed the fireball back at Shisui, much to the Uchiha's distress. The hell? How can he use a wind jutsu to counter a fire-based one? The indignant Uchiha protested. If it's more powerful than yours, it can do it. Now shut up and run. Shizun urged her husband, as the two of them retreated towards the waterfall flanked by the giant statues of Hashirama and Madara. As he gave chase atop of his beast, Danzo took a moment to check his right arm. He still had 5 Sharingan opened. While he felt they were enough to finish the fight, he decided it was best not to take any chances and finish the fight as quickly as possible. He could no longer be conservative with the chakra anymore. His hands started to form more hand seals, albeit this time not for a wind jutsu. Wood release, deep forest emergence. Once again, a multitude of wooden vines and roots emerged all around Shisui and Shizun, swiftly cutting their escape. However, this time Shisui wasn't going to let him trap them like that. He bit his thumb, before making 5 hand seals, and slammed his palm into the water's surface. Summoning Jutsu. From a burst of smoke, a giant crow emerged, with Shisui and Shizun riding on its back. The crow quickly flapped his wings, raising some wind as it gained altitude. Danzo, however, was unfazed. "You won't escape me, Uchiha," Danzo said, mostly to himself, before his eyes darted towards his minion. "Baku, stop them." The orange-furred beast opened its jaws, creating a powerful suction force between them, which started to suck all the air around it. Shisui's giant crow was stopped on his tracks, being caught inside a powerful wind current which pulled him towards the Baku. The bird flapped his wings as fast as he could, but to no avail. "Shisui-san." The crow managed to say. "I'm afraid I can't." "Don't worry, Kurakaze-sama. I know how to get rid of this guy," Shisui said, as his hands flew through more hand seals. "Hope you like spicy food." Fire release dash. Danzo, however, made a single hand seal faster. Sealing art, self-cursing seal. Suddenly, Shisui felt his whole body go completely rigid just as he was about to use his fire jutsu, as black marks started to spread around his body. "Shisui?" Shizun asked, worried. Her worry multiplied tenfold as Shisui started to slip away, pulled by the wind. Fortunately, she was able to grab him in time. "Shisui? Hold on." Shisui tried to break the cursed seal with the force of his chakra, but sadly he found out it wasn't enough. "Damn, when did Danzo place a seal?" Shisui inwardly asked, as he mentally reviewed the battle so far. The answer came when he remembered that Danzo had briefly held him by his neck when he was trying to gouge his eyes out. "So he placed a seal when he was going to take my eyes just in case, bastard's quite the planner." "You have lost, Shizun. You can't protect your husband and fight me at the same time," Danzo calmly said. "As a show of respect to your teacher, I will spare your life. But only if you surrender now." Of course, being Tsunade's first apprentice, the black-haired medicnin had also inherited some of her master's stubbornness, and giving up wasn't a part of her vocabulary, especially when the life of a loved one was on the line. "Surrender this." Potion mist. Shizun exhaled a cloud of poisonous gas, which was quickly sucked by the Baku. The effect was immediate, and the beast started to cough and cry in pain the moment he inhaled the toxic fumes. The damage done was so bad, the summoning was undone, and the orange-furred animal disappeared in a cloud of smoke, leaving Danzo alone once again. Next, Shizun quickly made several hand seals, before placing her hand on Shisui's chest, sending a burst of chakra through her body. Sealing art, lesser void touch. The effect was immediate, and the black marks spread around Shisui's body started to vanish, and as they did, the Uchiha started to recover his mobility. Trembling a little at first, he managed to sit up with Shizun's help. "Thanks," he said, rubbing his sore limbs. "I lost on how many times you saved my ass already." "Well, you saved me back then with your Susanoo," Shizun replied, smiling earnestly at him. "I doubt that makes us even," Shisui said, chuckling awkwardly, before his eyes focused on Danzo. "Since when are you this good at Fuinjutsu?" "The perks of living with Jiraiya-sama for the late part of my childhood," Shizun explained. "I might not be as talented as Nuzumaki, but I did pick up quite a few useful things." "Useful indeed," Shisui agreed, before looking at the ground below. Danzo was still there, looking up at them. "And you got rid of that annoying animal as well. You're the best. Now, let's get rid of the summoner." "Can you still fight?" Shizun asked. Shisui looked at Danzo, or better said at his right arm, and saw how one of its shurinan closed. The Uchiha cracked his neck, and smiled with determination. "You can bet I am. In fact, I think I have an idea of how we can beat him for good. Follow my lead, and attack with as much intensity as you can, okay?" Shizun wanted to ask how that was going to help against Izanagi, but decided to trust her husband. She energically nodded. "You got it." The Uchiha couple jumped from the giant bird's back, falling towards Danzo. Shizun's hands were enveloped by blue chakra, taking the shape of 2 large chakra blades, while Shisui made several hand seals. Fire release, Phoenix Sage Fire Jutsu. Shisui rained fireballs upon Danzo, who dodged the attack in spite of Izanaga being active. Shizun landed beside him, creating a huge splash the moment her feet hit the water, and delivered a flurry of rapid-paced swipes with her chakra scalpels, which Danzo alternated between dodging and parrying. A whirring sound alerted Danzo of multiple shuriken flying his way. He jumped backwards while crouching, avoiding both of them and Shizun. However, as he did this, he didn't notice Shisui's body flickering beside him, and plunging his tanto into his back. Danzo, however, disappeared before reappearing a few meters away from them. "How much long are you planning to keep this charade up?" Danzo asked in a somewhat bored tone. "Until you drop dead," Shisui replied. Shisu started to body flicker constantly around Danzo, generating multiple after-images around him. Despite his Sharingan, Danzo was unable to follow Shisui's movements, as he futilely tried to see where the Uchiha was moving. A bead of sweat ran through his temple. "Even the Sharingan has its limits, old man," Shisui said as he struck. His tanto, however, was parried by Danzo's kunao. "It doesn't matter. As long as I can see you, you won't be able to surprise me," Danzo calmly replied. Potion missed. Shizun jumped above the two men, and exhaled another cloud of poisonous gas. Shisui was able to disengage Danzo and body flicker away in time, but the root leader was engulfed by the mist. Not that it mattered, as Danzo reappeared a few meters out of the cloud, none the worse for the wear. As Shisui and Shizun charged at him, he made several hand seals. Wood release, wood dragon jutsu. From the water emerged a serpentine dragon made of wood that lunged at the incoming Uchiha couple. It tried to devour the two of them, which were forced to jump in opposite directions to avoid the bite. Rather than Shisui, the dragon focused on Shizun this time around. However, the medic Nin knew what to do to counter it. Her hands flew through hand seals once more. Water release, water severing wave. Shizun expelled a thin stream of pressurized water, aimed at the dragon's neck, easily chopping its head off. However, much to her surprise, 3 other wood dragons emerged after the first one was destroyed, taking his place. Shizun was forced to jump back in order to avoid the incoming attack. "Haven't you realized the difference in skill and power between you and me yet?" Danzo asked. "Haven't you realized that you talk too much?" Shisui said, appearing behind Danzo. Fire release, meltdown. Danzo was engulfed by a massive fireball, which also burned to ashes the wood dragons chasing Shizun, while also raising several clouds of steam from the nearby water. "All you're going to accomplish by doing this is to exhaust your chakra pointlessly," Danzo replied, as he repaired, once again completely unharmed. "Trust me, our chakra isn't the only one that's getting depleted," Shisui replied. "Did you actually check how many Sharingan have left?" "I know that I still have enough to." But Danzo's words died on his mouth when he checked his right arm. Only 2 Sharingan remained, with one of them already closing off. The root leader's eyes visibly widened. "What? No, this can't be right. How did this?" "I don't know if you're aware of the limitations, but Izanaga's duration isn't a constant," Shisui pointed out. "Its duration is proportional to the chakra you have, with 1 minute being its maximum time. By using Izanaga constantly, as well as other heavy chakra-consuming jutsu like wood release, your chakra quickly plummeted, which in turn shortened the duration of the Izanaga." "How did you know that?" "Nobody has used the Izanaga for as long as I did before," Danzo replied. "Easy. I've been keeping track of how long your eyes take to close. The first 3 were a minute each, so I thought that its duration was indeed constant. The 4th one, however, took 52 seconds to close, and the 5th one only 47. From that point onwards, every eye took less and less time to close. That's why I realized that, if we pushed you constantly, we could reduce that time even further. Plus Shizun-chan and I are young and the prime of our lives, so we can afford going all out from time to time, but you?" Shisui asked. "How old are you, 70? I mean, your Jonin-sensei was Tsunade-sama's grandma, for crying out loud. Even with Hashirama's cells boosting your power, your stamina can't be that great." You bastard!" Danzo shouted, showing emotion for the first time. There's a reason as for why Izanagi is a forbidden jutsu, Shisui said, shaking his head. You probably thought that you could abuse it with enough Sharingan. But that's what you get when you think you're smarter than the clan who invented that jutsu, and whose eyes you stole and wear as if they were your own. Shizun landed beside Shisui with a small splash. Good one, Shisui. Shizun praised her husband. Let's finish him off. So, 2 eyes left. One in his arm, and the one in his face, Shisui observed. Though he might not want to sacrifice the latter. Correction, Shizun said, smiling smugly. 1 eye left. Danzo saw how the last Sharingan in his arm closed. Not without a considerable amount of resignation, he made a hand seal. Cancel. Shisui's Sharingan could see how Danzo's chakra shifted. It seems that he didn't want to use his remaining Sharingan left to fuel the Izanagi. Whose eye is that? Shisui asked. In order to be so protective of it. Fugaku Uchiha's, was Danzo's laconic answer. He awakened the main Jikyo Sharingan during the Uchiha insurrection. Yet you didn't use it against us, Shisui said. Do you plan to use it now as a last resort? I'm afraid I can't. Even with the regeneration provided by Hashirama's cells, my chakra levels are too low to use the main Jikyo Sharingan, Danzo explained. So, do you surrender then? Shisui asked, as he menacingly walked towards Danzo, who made no effort to flee or even move. Or do you plan to die fighting? While my failure at acquiring your eyes is undeniable, I'm afraid that you won't claim my life today, Shisui Uchiha, Danzo confidently stated. Or any other day for that matter. That moment, Shizun noticed something above them, albeit not fast enough to prevent it in time. Shisui, watch out! She yelled as she jumped backwards. Trusting his intuition, he followed his wife's example and jumped away from Danzo. That moment, several kunai with explosive tags attached rained from above, creating a chain of explosions between the root leader and the Uchiha couple, raising some water and steam as well. I was afraid that you didn't get my message, Danzo said. What the? Shizun mumbled. When their eyes refocused, they could see that Danzo was surrounded by Otagaku or ninja, being led by no other than Kabuto Yakushi. Oh, we did. But we thought that, with the head start you had, our aid wouldn't be necessary, Kabuto replied, as he eyed Shisui and Shizun. May I ask why did you let these two catch you? No, you may not ask, Danzo firmly stated. I thought I had the right to know, given that you exposed our partnership to Konoha, Kabuto replied. Orochimaru-sama won't be pleased with this development. Orochimaru still needs me, and you know that, Danzo replied, who was straining to sound impatient. Now, can we leave already? Very well then, Kabuto said with a shrug, as he took a step forward, looking ready to fight the Uchiha couple. So, you plan to keep us busy while your minions take Danzo away, right? Shisui guessed, as he scowled at Kabuto. Not going to happen. Shizun. Yes. Shizun dashed at Kabuto, who was making hand seals, her chakra scalpels activated, while Shisui body flickered towards Danzo's position. However, neither of them were expecting what came next, once Kabuto finished weaving seals. Yin release, bringer of darkness. The Oto ninjas threw more kunai with explosive tags attached at them, before the entire Valley of the End was engulfed by a cloak of absolute darkness. Choosing between trying to catch Danzo or avoiding the explosions, the Uchiha couple decided that their lives were more important. When the explosions happened, they managed to put enough distance to avoid the shockwave. Then, the aura of darkness vanished, revealing that Danzo, Kabuto, and the Oto ninjas were longer there. Realizing that Danzo had indeed escaped, Shisui stomped his foot in anger. Damn it! Damn it all! We had him! We had him, and the bastard escaped from our grasp. Shisui? Shizun asked. Should we go after them? They probably head to Orochimaru's old hideout in the Land of Sound. Shisui just shook his head. Forget it. We're in no shape to fight that many ninja. Danzo got away for good. Shizun walked to her husband and placed a hand on his shoulder. I'm sorry. Shisui grabbed his wife's hand, and squeezed it a little. Looking into her eyes, he deactivated his Sharingan, and forced himself to smile. It's okay, it's not your fault. Hell, if anything, I would have died 100 times if it wasn't for you. Besides, at the very least our children are safe. Our children. Shizun repeated. Let's go back home. I want to hold them in my arms again. Me too, Shisui agreed, as the two of them headed south. So, Danzo was working with Orochimaru all along. At this point, it's hardly surprising. Makes sense. Remember when Orochimaru invaded the village? Shizun asked. Danzo probably tipped Orochimaru about how to do it, where to attack, and what time would it be best. As if leaking information on the Jinchuriki wasn't bad enough, Shisui said, shaking his head. Hokage-sama is going to be almost as mad as I am when he hears the news. Orochimaru's land of Sound Lair, a couple hours later. The sun had set a few minutes ago, and the land was covered with the night's mantle of darkness. As Danzo expected, Konoha didn't send any teams to retrieve him. That doesn't mean that he and all the agents that successfully escaped could stay in that lair forever. They had to find a new hideout soon. While Danzo and his men rested in the lair, guarded by Orochimaru's men, the Snake Sannin himself and his right-hand man were discussing how the recent events had unfolded. It's a pity that Danzo failed to abduct not even one of all those targets, Orochimaru lamented, as he walked alongside Kabuto. While there's little more I can learn from Jiraiya's brats, or any Uchiha, that Rin girl would have been something worth studying. I can't believe I had such a valuable specimen in my power for so long, but foolishly let her go. To think that Obito used Hashirama's cells to bring somebody back from the death. Indeed. It seems that Obito can use Hashirama's cells in a way that we can't even imagine, the bespectacled man agreed. Is there anything they can't do? The fact that Obito could provide me with an almost unlimited amount of Hashirama's cells was one of the key factors that made me join Akatsuki, Orochimaru said. However, I also knew that Obito had to be working with somebody else. Pain? Kabuto asked. Orochimaru shook his head. Obito isn't somebody with a background in biology, medicine, or any kind of science, and neither is Pain. If that was the case, they wouldn't have recruited me for Akatsuki. Plus, I've been investigating him, and I found a gap in his past that I've been unable to fill. What did he do between his apparent death, and the Nine Tails attack on Konoha? The fact that Obito hides plenty of secrets is something obvious, Kabuto said. What about Zetsu? Our analysis shows that he also has Hashirama's DNA. Yes, Zetsu. At first I thought he would be Obito's benefactor. Yet for some reason, Zetsu acts subservient to Obito, not the other way around, Orochimaru pointed out. No, their dynamic makes no sense. That is, unless the two of them serve another. If that's the case, then who? If it's not Pain, nor that Tonari guy, who's left? Kabuto asked. The only one I can think of would be Madara Uchiha, but even if he miraculously survived his fight against Hashirama, there's no way he can still be alive. Maybe not, but just like how Obito resurrected his childhood crush, who says that he might not try to do the same with somebody else? Like Madara. Orochimaru suggested. The implications of Madara coming back to life are chilling, to say the least, Kabuto said, remaining stoic, but showing some fear. That's why we must investigate what's Obito planning to do next, Orochimaru said. Then, he raised his left hand, and removed the Akatsuki ring from the little finger. And in order to do so, I can no longer be part of the Akatsuki. I see, Kabuto said, then a realization hit him. Wait, does that mean that we're going with the final phase of our plans? Indeed. Kabuto, make sure to move all our forces to the designated base, Orochimaru instructed. But make sure to relocate Danzo and his men somewhere else. While the old Warhawk still has his uses, he's no longer as relevant as he thinks. Understood, Kabuto said with a head nod. Before leaving, another realization hit him. Orochimaru-sama, does this mean that we aren't going to help Akatsuki with the remaining Jinchuriki? Regrettably not, the Sannin replied, shaking his head in disappointment. What a pity, I would have loved a rematch against Sensei that and that idiot Jiraiya, if they only knew the power I possess now. I'm sure you will have another chance in the future, Kabuto reassured him, before both men left. Little did the Sannin and his lackey knew that his conversation had been heard by a certain somebody, who didn't take Orochimaru's plans very kindly. "So, that's what you plan to do, you bastard," the unseen person hissed, speaking to no one in particular. "This betrayal won't remain unanswered, I swear that on my life." And the mysterious individual disappeared as well. Check the description for the links to the author.